Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the D and WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the second part of What If Deku's Villainy wasn't what All for One expected. All credits for this video go to their respective authors. So please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. So, they failed to eliminate him? Nezu asks. Eraserhead stares at him from the other end of the room, only barely hiding the hostility. It's a miracle that the rat doesn't notice it. Stain vanished before she got into the position. Underground Hero replies. High Slide bled out before vigilantes got to him, so we can't even interrogate him. I went with Plan B after receiving confirmation that Plan A failed, and attempted to set up an emergency meeting with Stain, only to jump him with a group of underground heroes. But he didn't reply. There is a possibility that he knows that it was a setup and went into hiding. Isn't it strange how often pet assassins go rogue nowadays? Nezu replies. Eraserhead knows whom the rat was referring to. He clicks his tongue in irritation. If only I knew why the League of Villains was looking for Stain. Rat appears to be deep in his thoughts. At some point he resurfaces, and looks at Eraserhead with renewed interest. What about? No, Hero replies. This startles Nezu. I don't know what you are planning this time, but the answer is no. What do you mean? Nezu is still surprised. This is a rare occurrence. What I mean is that All Might was right yesterday. Eraserhead replies calmly. I relayed your order to the Alliance only because I know that vigilantes wanted Stain dead either way, and that his survival is a threat to them. All I did was tell them where and when to find him. But now I'm done with him and I'm done with you. Aizawa, Nezu starts, but Eraserhead doesn't give him the time to finish. I was aware that you used Stain to eliminate corrupt heroes that were too dug in to be eliminated through other means. The underground hero says, but I knew of only 3 assassinations. What I didn't know is that you used several more heroes as couriers, including Ingenium. A second of pause. Eraserhead's face steels up. 37 heroes killed or maimed pretty much at your orders. What is wrong with you, Nezu? 37 government-backed villains in our midst. Nezu replies calmly. What was I supposed to do? Send them letters condemning their actions. No court in this country could potentially get people like High Slide or Green Gauntlet behind bars. And you know it. Green Gauntlet is done for not because Stain stabbed him. Eraserhead answers with venom dripping off his tongue. He is done for because you anonymously released a video recording of him raping an underage intern, while telling her that he is untouchable because nobody would believe her and he has friends in high places. Everyone knows he is done for now, even if someone in the Hero Commission decides to defend him after all. His reputation, his career, and his negative influence on heroics are over. Sending a serial killer after him was redundant and illogical. Tell that to the intern. Nezu replies. She committed suicide 2 years later, after Gauntlet did his best to ruin her career for trying to fight back. I'm sure her spirit will be overjoyed to know that her killer had his career ended and received a lot of nasty words on social media. So it's all about vengeance. Eraserhead is only getting more and more furious. Justice might be blinder in Japan than in most of the world. But who gave you the right to be the judge, jury, and executioner? Hero Commission is. Nezu is about to reply, but Eraserhead doesn't let him. Stop that, he says, and Nezu, oddly enough, stops talking. I know that the president of the commission is one of the worst villains in this country. I know what she did to you, and I know that you are doing your best to not let her become an authoritarian despot. But what's the point when you are doing that by acting like her? Something ice cold shows up on Nezu's face. It is fury, that much Eraserhead is certain about. You are supposed to be a hero, a pro-hero. If you are truly fighting against the decline of democracy, you should have come forward and shown the evidence of corruption to the public and let them decide on the punishment. You can't restore public trust in heroes and justice by hiring serial killers to dispense the latter on the former. Don't you dare talk to me about becoming someone like her. Nezu is furious, more than he was at the Legion right after the attack. Eraserhead saw him like that only once before, but he came prepared to face the rat, and nothing is going to change it. You know nothing about what she did to me. And also, you're fired, Aizawa. Now get out of my office. No, Eraserhead replies calmly. Nezu looks at him with a combination of shock and fury. No, I'm not fired and I'm not leaving. First of all, you are a hypocrite. If sending murderers after commission lackeys is justified because some of them did horrible things to you, then that means that QLF is morally right when it plants bombs in preschools because other quirk did horrible things to their members in the past. Past abuse doesn't give you a moral carte blanche. Nezu opens his mouth for some fearsome retort, only to freeze. Eraserhead leans over his desk and looks down on Nezu from up close. Second of all, if you get rid of me, you also need to get rid of All Might, Mike, Midnight, Vlad, and all your contacts within the Vigilante Alliance and the Underground Heroes. And just so you know, Cementos and Recovery Girl will probably follow All Might even if he doesn't tell them the whole truth about the issue. This is treason. The prospect is terrifying enough that it shakes Nenzu out of his silent fury. The commission will win, you can't. Aizawa is increasingly angry, but he knows that sufficient shock is the only way to make Nenzu reconsider his wrong ideas. Use your goddamn brain, Nenzu. Eraserhead starts losing his patience. Why, for all his smarts, Nenzu is sometimes so stupid. We all gathered around the UA not because we wanted to work for you, but because UA meant something to us. We gathered around the ideals of heroism, of helping others and serving the people, so we didn't betray anyone. But you came very damn close to betraying us all when you started using assassinations as a go-to-mean of disposing of our enemies, instead of the absolute last resort. What's the point of winning against the commission if we turn into its copy to achieve that? There is silence in the room. Nenzu appears calm, but Eraserhead's eyes are good enough to notice the slight trembling. Think about it for a few days. The teacher says after the silence becomes awkward. Then tell me if I'm still fired. He is about to leave the room when he thinks of something. Also, why the hell did you think that it was a good idea to mention all that to All Might? That is the one thing he still couldn't understand. It doesn't matter anymore. Principal replies, Akatani Makumo, we found him. Sawatakio, damn. Akatani Makumo, are you going to honor the deal? Sawatakio, are you going to make sure he doesn't talk with anyone about being Stendhal? Akatani Makumo, let's just say that I'll make sure that he doesn't lethally inconvenience the Alliance. Akatani Makumo, but I'm not going to kill him. Sawatakio, why did you even look for the hero killer? Akatani Makumo, had a debt to settle. He helped me deal with Overhaul. Akatani Makumo, but that's settled now. Akatani Makumo, also listen. Akatani Makumo, you should recall Alliance members from Hasu for a while. Sawatakio, why? Akatani Makumo, consider this a warning. The city's getting too hot. Akatani Makumo, too hot as an Ingenium was assassinated by someone from the Public Commission rather than Stain. And Stain was almost assassinated by someone from a completely different group. Akatani Makumo, I also got to Stain right before Legion did. Akatani Makumo, Hasu's getting hot and you'll do best to not be there if things get even hotter. Sawatakio, shit. Akatani Makumo, yeah, it's great a political clusterfuck, and if you get too involved, Commission might target you even if it won't connect you with Stain. Sawatakio, I'll relay the warning, but can't promise anything. Akatani Makumo, alright. He is about to enter the Juzo News building when his phone rings. Yes, he decides to pick it up. It could be something interesting, even if he doesn't recognize the number. Tokuda Tanio. The voice feels slightly odd. Some voice alteration app. It can be more interesting than he thought, especially as this particular number is private. How did the mysterious caller find it? That's right. Who is it? Hopefully his articles didn't infuriate someone enough to start threatening him on the phone. That would ruin his day. That's irrelevant. The voice replies, what is relevant is then I have an offer to you. If you tail Endeavor this Friday, you might be able to obtain an interesting material. Unfortunately, it's the type of material that makes certain powerful people very antsy. As a result, it might be best to have it aired live. I believe a journalist as popular as you will find someone willing to expose the corruption to the public. Endeavor. Corruption. Something is going to happen in 3 days. This does sound interesting. Very much, in fact. It might be a bit hard to achieve. The journalist replies honestly. Don't get me wrong. I could find a handful of TV stations ready to risk their heads for such a scoop, but they won't just randomly air such a material. Not without confirming it first. And if it's something as volatile as you claim it to be, certain groups, or perhaps the Hero Commission, might sweep in first. Do not worry about that. The mysterious caller replies. The eyes of Japan will be on Hasu that day. All that's left is to switch the cameras to another part of the city when it happens. Should be much easier to achieve, isn't it? Yes. The journalist smiles faintly. That's much more possible. Satan 2, I need all Naumus ready for combat this Friday. Dr. Evil, oh, Satan 2, yes, another operation. This time it will be way bigger than the USJ. Satan 2, I'm not going to tell you anything, because honestly, you can just watch it on TV. We're going public. Satan 2, not going to ruin the surprise. Dr. Evil, finally planning something big? Dr. Evil, Sensei would be proud. Dr. Evil, I have 9-second gens operational, including one near high-end. Satan 2, marvelous. Kurogiri will pick them up from the usual spot on Thursday. 10 p.m. works. Dr. Evil, yes, I will have them all prepared. Izuku still didn't figure out how to explain to the doctor that he is all for one son rather than chosen successor. It was going to be an awkward talk, considering how that man pretty much worshipped his father. He also thought that said father was dead. Even more awkward. Sawatakio, Alliance decided to listen to your warning. Akatani Makumo, oh, Sawatakio, we contacted some other sources. Too many strange things are happening in the city nowadays. Sawatakio, something nasty's in the air. Sawatakio, too many underground heroes and other weirdos around. And I was almost spotted by Hawks of all people. Sawatakio. But the point is that Alliance is pulling out from Hasu for the next 2 to 3 weeks until the situation calms down. Akatani Mikumo, reassuring. Sawatakio, good luck in whatever you're doing. Akatani Mikumo, will do my best. UA Spy, check this out. UA Spy, Eraserhead just fucking roasted Nenzu XD. Small Might, give me a while to listen to the recording before spoiling it, dammit XD. Small Might, okay. Small Might, wow. Small Might, Eraserhead's super cool. Small Might, and I totally agree. Small Might, I actually considered throwing out his autograph when I heard that he knew about Nenzu sending stain after people. Small Might, but I didn't, and that's good because I would hate myself for it now. Small Might, UA is still salvageable, I think. Small Might. And if UA is, maybe the country is too. UA Spy, you better hope the rat won't march after us again. Small Might, Eraserhead roasted him for going too far with his campaigns, not for having certain informal deals with the underworld or killing people when everything else failed, so it should be alright. Small Might, wait a sec. Small Might, I have an idea. UA Spy, oh no. Small Might, can you get me Eraserhead's phone number? Aizawa Shouta has a relatively pleasant day. The students aren't that much of a bother. Nobody makes him question his own sanity, and even present Mike is less of an irritant than normally. The last bit is especially rare. Then, when he is about to leave the school grounds, he suddenly feels his telephone ring. Unknown number. It can't be good. He can only hope that someone accidentally pushed the wrong buttons, and Eraserhead. The unknown voice in the phone immediately dispels the underground hero's hopes. Yes, who is it? Do I need to say it? The voice is completely different this time. Legion, how did he get his phone number? Sure, it is the phone that he uses for school business, so technically it isn't that much of a secret, but did he get it from one of the students? Or was it one more leftover from the pre-USJ hack? Indeed, Legion makes a small chuckle. I heard a lot of good things about you from our mutual friend, Stain. Oh, shit. League getting in contact with Stain is one of the worst-case scenarios that Eraserhead can imagine. He knows that Akatani Mikumo was after the hero killer, but until now, they didn't know why, or whether he succeeded. They all hoped that the hero killer vanished after being betrayed by Nenzu. This meant that Legion is now aware of the fact that Nenzu was using Stain as his personal assassin, and knowing Midoriya Izuku's outlook on heroism. Do not worry, Eraserhead. Legion interrupts his musings. Stain is pissed off, but he knows that sinking Nenzu would sink UA, and sinking the UA would damage All Might. And I've spent enough time in the underworld to know that underground heroes like you sometimes need to get their hands dirty. Though I suspect that Nenzu didn't tell you how many people he had Stain kill or maim for him. That might be correct. Eraserhead replies as neutrally and calmly as he can. But what do you want? You aren't phoning me just to talk about the past. Yes, Legion replies. I need a favor. In exchange, Stain and the rest of the League of Villains will mysteriously forget about the entire hired killer part. Forever. Nothing illegal, before you ask. Stain and the rest of the League. Eraserhead eyes widen in shock. The hero killer actually joined an organization? Nenzu and the rest of the UA saw him as a disposable lone wolf that bowed to no one. How did Legion, a 16-year-old kid, no less, manage to get Stain to follow him? Eraserhead can scarcely imagine Stain having followers. Nenzu actually suspected he had someone, though he hunted alone. Stain being the follower. This elevated Legion's potential threat level immensely. Wasn't the hero killer about to be promoted to an S rank himself? It can, and hopefully is, a deception on Legion's part. It's not like Eraserhead got to see Stain and Legion working together. All he has are Legion's words. What would that favor be? Aizawa asks. I need the underground heroes to pull out from Hasu for a few days. Legion replies. I know that Ms. Joke sent a lot of them to look for Stain, and I know that she will listen to you if you ask her for it. I want them out by the end of tomorrow. Oh, I might consider that, if you tell me what you are planning. The Razor hero replies. He needs information. Legion has already outgrew their estimations of his potential danger level. All I can tell you is that it will change the dynamic between the Hero Commission and the UA completely. Legion replies. I'm going to win Nedzu's war for him, and keep your hands and his paws clean. But I want to avoid collateral damage. And to that end, I need to get rid of all the wild cards. A group of underground heroes whose placement I can't predict can throw the whole plan through the window. And you know how ugly improvisation can be from the mess in the USJ. Eraserhead mentally skims through everything that he knows about Izuku Midori. How trustworthy is he? He didn't shout at Nedzu about going too far, only to immediately go too far himself. That would be illogical. His knowledge points towards conditional yes. The League did its best to limit collateral damage during the USJ attack, made sure to not hurt any kids, and targeted the Hero Commission's hero. Legion appeared to be a fanboy of UA, but is that still a thing? Hearing about UA faculty arranging assassinations of their political enemies can change a fanboy into a hater. Agreeing, even verbally, to pull out of a city at the behest of a S-rank villain will be a nail to the political coffin if made public. Eraserhead hated politics. I already had that talk with the Alliance. Before you ask, Legion interrupts his musings again. Crawler's merry bunch of misfits has already left the city. All I'm doing is having the groups I like pull out before shit hits the fan. No weird schemes here. He knows about Crawler too. The day just keeps getting worse. But if the Vigilante Alliance DID pull out at his insistence, it gave some credence to Legion's words. I'll have to check if the Alliance has truly pulled back. Eraserhead eventually decides what to do. But if it did, then you have the deal. Great. Legion sounds genuinely happy. Don't throw out the phone. I'll tell you when to switch the TV on. Then the call ends. Switch the TV on. What did Eraserhead just agree to? I wish to apologize, Netsu says, actually bowing his head before them. What I did was wrong. I let my personal vendetta against the Hero Commission cloud my mind, and took the war with them too far. I'm sorry, and I promise you that this will not happen again. Eraserhead didn't expect to be called into the principal's office for this, judging from the look on the All Might's face. He wasn't the only one. Principal Netsu, All Might is the first one to answer. He is in his inflated state, but the solemn and serious expression on his face made him look strange. This isn't the smiling face that the world was used to. I'm not going to lie to you. I find your actions reprehensible. I'm not blind to the world. I know what state Japan is in. And I know that without you and Sir Night-Eye doing some morally questionable things behind the curtains, the villain that tore my stomach and lung out would still be at large. But I'll repeat my words from our arguments. We are heroes. We are supposed to inspire people, give them hope, become an example for them to follow. Few short seconds of silence. You ordered assassination of almost 40 heroes. Regardless of what they did or whether they could be dealt through a legal process, you went too far. Whether or not you apologize for it, I expect you to turn yourself in when only it will be possible to do that without threatening the integrity of Japan. And if you do not do it, then I will do it for you. Technically, all that Netsu did was leak evidence of corruption. But to a man who considered cleansing corruption with bloody murder his calling, whether that would influence the verdict was anyone's guess. I'll do that gladly, Netsu replies, because if I'll be in a position to do it, then it will mean that my work in Japan is over and the country is safe. Eraserhead wonders if he was going to get imprisoned too. He did act as a courier on 3 occasions. Netsu probably knew that he would say no to most cases, so those 3 were particularly nasty. But somehow he doubted that it would be a good defense in court. Water under the bridge now. Aizawa says, we should get ready to deal with the fallout. Legion contacted me directly. He did what? All Might is startled. Netsu is obviously startled as well, but he did that wordlessly. Phone call. Eraserhead replies, unless he lied to me. Stain has just joined the League of Villains. Netsu goes pale. Probably. Lack of human face makes identification of such expressions hard. But Eraserhead has a hunch. Legion knows all about your deals with Stain and used that as a leverage to make me withdraw all underground heroes from Hasu for a few days, right after he persuaded the Vigilante Alliance to pull out from the city too. Eraserhead sighs tiredly. It is only going to get uglier from now on. He simply knows that. I don't know what his plans for Hasu are, but apparently they will change the dynamic between the Hero Commission and UA and win Netsu's war for him, while keeping our hands and paws clean. I'm quoting Legion here. Eraserhead continues. It will also include television, since he told me that he'll phone me again to tell me when to switch on the TV. So, Netsu, if you believe in any greater power, you should pray fervently until the plan goes through. Because if Legion lied to me about his goals, your bloodthirsty streak has just allowed a 16-years-old hero fanboy turned supervillain to checkmate the entire UA. Oh dear, if Netsu was, indeed, pale earlier, then now he is borderline transparent. That's very bad news indeed. So, does everyone understand the plan? Izuku asks, raising his head. The entire League of Villains, including the 4 new potential recruits, are with him, all surrounding a large table with a map of Hasu, with a number of flags and chess pieces scattered through it, plus some pictures, typically of local pro heroes whose quirks Izuku dissected. Are you sure you are 16 years old? It is Spinner who voices the main controversy, and not, dunno, a century-old villain mastermind who got hit by an age-reversing quirk. It is quite ironic that his sister has just that quirk, and that his father is a 2 centuries-old villain mastermind. But he isn't going to announce either, although he can see Stain and Himiko growing faint smiles after the question. They know about Eri's quirk. We are wondering about that too. Mustard comments, causing few of the League's old members to chuckle or laugh. I had a good teacher, Izuku replies, trying not to blush, and started early. Understatement. Both sentences, in fact. The actual training started when he was 8 years old, but it's not like he didn't catch some snippets of knowledge here and there earlier. Stain laughs loudly. And now you know why I like this kid. The hero killer says, convictions, adherence to a personal creed, and brains. You only got better since the last time, Izuku. Yeah, but I'm still 100% sure that things will go bad at some point. Izuku replies, USJ's plan was equally good. But I can't foresee everything. I got 2 main sources of wildcards in the city out of it, but plans can only take you so far. Worst of all, we only had 2 teams to coordinate back then, but now we have a few more. Kurogiri and Gremlin are going to be crucial. So I'm saying this once again. If any of them is in danger, the nearest party has to drop whatever they are doing and move in to assist. And what's even more important, he takes a deep breath. He almost starts to mumble. We do not kill anyone but endeavor. Got it. Wave of nods and weak vocal confirmations. Should be good enough. He thinks that his plan is perfect. But then Dabai comes forward and has a serious talk with Izuku. If they manage to pull it off, tomorrow's operation is going to be spectacular. And Izuku couldn't wait to see the results. Insomniac, Phase 1 done. Got her under my quirk. Nobody noticed a thing. Insomniac, Vampire Princess is in. And ready to go. Small Might, wonderful. Phase 2 in 2 hours. Small Might, at Miss Explosion do you have eyes on Endeavor? Miss Explosion, yep. Small Might, camera guy following him? Miss Explosion, yep. Small Might, contact me immediately if he loses Endeavor. I'll need to guide him back to our target. Miss Explosion, yep. Small Might, I'm getting worried with how compliant she is. Insomniac, she is probably anxious to show her newest babies to the world. Miss Explosion, yep. Small Might, I see. Small Might, I'll have to ask Zealot if he knows a good exorcist though, just in case. Sneaky Gecko, lol. Deus Volt, burn. After meeting Miss Explosion in person, I think this might be a good idea. Burn. If the tales you told me are true, I'm surprised that Stain's new sword didn't explode when he sheathed it. Purge the fakes. I get the feeling that I should have asked some questions before accepting the gift. Phase 2 can be summarized as chaos. They need 10 or 20 minutes alone with Endeavor, alone, but in front of cameras, of course. This can't be achieved if there are some free and unoccupied heroes walking around the city. There are 3 main hero agencies within Hasu City. They all receive nasty wake-up calls when Kurogiri warps to each of them, bringing 2nd-gen Naumus with him. 4 to the first one, 4 to the second one, and a single near high-end to the third one. Each receives a single handler to make sure they don't cause too much damage. Those are Spinner, Zealot, and Mindscrew. The last one is paired with Mustard. Izuku doesn't fully trust the Naumus, even the near high ends. In the meantime, Dabai and Gremlin walk to the headquarters of Hasu Police. Nobody tries to stop them, as the building was rapidly vacated following a fire alarm merely a few minutes earlier, and, besides, they enter from the roof where Kurogiri warped them to. Dabai ensures that the fire alarm is genuine by setting an actual fire before getting warped back to base. Gremlin in the meantime connects to the police network, allowing La Brava to enter the security network of Hasu City, creating dozens of false alarms for heroes that weren't in the agencies when the attack started. The chief of local police tries to contact the mayor, only to discover that phones in the entire city stopped working. Although even if they still worked, the mayor would be unable to answer due to the small EMP bomb shutting down his building's power supply and keeping him trapped in his office. Within 15 minutes, the security in the entire city is thoroughly compromised. As Izuku promised a certain journalist, the eyes of the entire Japan began to turn towards Hasu. In his secret hideout in a completely different city, Izuku gives a quick heads up to Eraserhead and his parents to switch on the TV. He also quickly phones a certain journalist to get ready. The show is about to start. He is about to enter the stage. And so are the 4 wild cards to derail the plan. We still do not know the extent of the damage. A reporter on the screen announces, one of the few lucky reporters to be in Hasu, now fully taking advantage of that fact. What we do know is that a fire broke out in the headquarters of local police, forcing it to be evacuated, and that the 3 main hero agencies in the city came under attack by villains. Some of them have been identified as members of the League of Villains, a group that became known for their daring raid on the UA earlier this year. What's more, phones throughout the city stopped working, but it's too early to say if that too is the work of villains or if the network is overwhelmed by call attempts. Heroes appear incapable to respond to emergencies sprouting throughout the city, and, oh dear, Nedzu says in the silence of the UA teacher's lounge. All Might and Eraserhead that are accompanying him simply stare at the screen in silence. Our 16-years-old hero fanboy just took over a city. That's just a diversion. Eraserhead replies. He is making sure that heroes and the police are too busy to try to stop whatever he is doing. And he is rather vigorous about it, the hero has to admit, but only in his thoughts. The real question, says All Might, is what he is doing. Suddenly the image of the screen shifts, the reporter's wave of words cut in half. Instead of him, they see a familiar figure of Endeavor. He and his sidekick are standing on what appeared to be an abandoned street, probably somewhere in Hasu. He mentioned in an interview that he is going to move to the city to catch the hero killer. Oh no, thinks Eraserhead. He connected the dots. Judging from Nedzu's faint gasp, he isn't the only one. Pitch black mist forming behind Endeavor is way too familiar. The flaming hero turns to face it, just as figures start to emerge from it. My name is Legion, and we are the League of Villains. The familiar figure in All Might hoodie announces, with Stain emerging right beside it. We've decided to interrupt your day in order to judge hero number 2, Endeavor, for his crimes. Since we can't exactly expect the police, heroes, and the courts to do their work. Now that's quite ambitious, Nedzu says, changing understatement into an art. All Might is visibly terrified. They can't hope to take him down. He isn't a one-trick pony like Thunderbolt, Eraserhead says confidently. And he is a ranged combatant mostly, perfect counter to Legion and Stain. He just needs to keep them at a distance, and they won't be able to do anything. 2 more figures emerge. One is Decay, the Hand's costume easily recognizable. The other is a horrifically scarred young man in a leather coat. The living warp gate retracts but stays behind the 4. How bold of you, villains. Endeavor is loud. He probably doesn't know about the camera, it's just his personality. Since you were kind enough to come to me yourself, I'll give you a chance. Surrender now, or... Vernon moves swiftly, knife suddenly in her hand. The cut is shallow, and the blade is immediately thrown towards Stain. He catches it with almost inhuman speed and licks it. Endeavor suddenly falls to the ground, like a marionette whose strings were cut. Eraserhead stares at the image in shock. All Might grows paler by the second, probably realized how easy it would be to take him down like that. Nedzu looks torn between amazement, amusement, and horror. What have you done to me? Endeavor screams in impotent rage. Of course, Legion sighs loudly. The camera has a microphone good enough to actually catch it. Not only you haven't even noticed that Vampire replaced your closest sidekick 2 hours ago. The fake Vernon makes a victory sign and hops over to the Legion side. But the first thing you do after that is to scream about yourself. The real Vernon is unharmed, if slightly, bound, and probably deeply touched by your attention. He turns his head towards Stain. As I promised, Endeavor's yours to judge, Stain. And as I promised, me and my allies will now join the League of Villains, Stain announces before walking over the fallen Endeavor. He draws his katana and hovers it above the number 2 hero. Are you ready to face justice, false hero? As if a villain like you had a right to talk about justice. You can say a lot of nasty things about Endeavor, but not that he is a coward. You are just a murderer, hero killer. Even if you manage to kill me now, someone else will end you. I'm looking forward to it, hero killer replies with pride. Eraserhead doesn't doubt his honesty even for a second. When I began purging the world of fakes of you, I took it for granted that a hero would finally come and stop me. I am, as you said, a murderer, and heroes stop murderers. My only wish was for my vanquisher to be worthy of his title. He smiles widely and maniacally. But what sort of court would we be if you didn't get to hear the accusations before execution? Dabai. He turns his head towards the horrifically scarred man. I assume you have something to say. Oh, let me guess. Endeavor decides to deride his soon-to-be killers. You're a villain who tried to kill, rape, or steal from someone. And then I, the horrible, horrible hero, came and burned you. And now I'm going to be killed for that quote-unquote crime. The burned man, Dabai, Eraserhead reminds himself, walks over the fallen giant and kneels down in front of him. The burning part and getting killed for it is correct. Dabai replies calmly. Eraserhead could see his eyes gleaming. But the villain part came later. You don't recognize me, Endeavor. I'm quite sad. Sure, I changed a lot. But what father fails to recognize his firstborn son? Eraserhead thinks that he heard something wrong for a second. All Might takes a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the screen. They can see Endeavor's face, and how pale it gets within a few seconds. Tauya. The terror and shock is clearly audible. Yes, father. Dabai smiles. Look, I survived your flames. But wait, this is supposed to be a court. He stands up, extending his arms, what remains of his face gleaming with happiness and satisfaction. Let's list your crimes chronologically, shall we? And he starts talking about how Endeavor dreamed of creating a perfect heir to defeat All Might, so he used the Hero Commission's help to arrange a perfect quirk marriage. On how he treated Tauya as his default successor due to being born first and the strength of his flames, ignoring the fact that his fire resistance didn't work as it should. How he eventually decided that Tauya's useless and went to look for alternatives. Then he goes on how Endeavor treated his wife as a broodmare and started producing spare children. On how his next 2 children were deemed failures, and how the last one, Shaodo, was finally his perfect masterpiece. And then he describes, in front of the entire Japan, how Endeavor casted Tauya aside, despite the elder brother trying even harder to succeed in the mission that he took as his sole goal in life. How Tauya eventually had enough of it, sought help elsewhere, only for people to either ignore his claims as delusional or be too afraid to help. on how the one and only person who tried to help him was discouraged from continuing on this road by someone from the Hero Commission, and how he finally tried to stop his father and used his quirk, only to get burned almost to death in the resulting struggle. How the flames of his father and his own burned his skin off, and how he managed to fake his death thanks to some kind soul in the hospital that he ended up in, and how the Hero Commission helped to cover his death as an accident too. And finally, he says how his mother finally snapped under pressure and threw boiling water at Shadow's face, on the half that resembled his father. How the Hero Commission helped his father put her in a mental asylum while making sure that nobody would ask any questions about the reasons for the snap. And how Todoroki Shoto, despite that, won the UA Sports Festival while using only his mother's side of his power, as he vowed to never use his father's flames. As he ends his tale, Eraserhead is angry at himself. Why didn't he notice? Why didn't he ask Shoto why he only uses half of his power? Why did he fail him, just like everyone else failed his older brother? And the OOR. All Might is absolutely livid. He is in his inflated form, his fists and mouth clenched. Eraserhead never saw the symbol of peace this furious. To this day, All Might seemed oddly blind to how much Endeavor hated him. But now he understands. He also understands how that hatred ruined the lives of 5 innocent people. And this isn't even everything. Legion speaks as Dabai ends his speech. The Hero Commission does it all the time. Does anyone still remember the 9 victims of that horrible fire in Nagata 9 years ago? A terrible villain fight that had left my mother paralyzed and her sister dead. Some people do remember. If not, many others will find out tonight. Eraserhead is certain of that. He also knows what's going to happen next. Not like it can help anyone. Only the villain fight was, in fact, Thunderbolt messing up. Legion continues. Took me years to find out the truth, since the Hero Commission did their cover-up so well. And thus I am here, a villain dispensing justice because he cannot trust the heroes to do that. He laughs bitterly. Dabai. No, the scarred man shakes his head. Sons shouldn't kill their fathers, even such fathers. Endeavor is a broken man. He doesn't say anything, merely stares in shock and terror. He is yours to judge, Stain. Dabai and Decay vanish from the scene, teleported away by the warp gate. Any last words, Endeavor? Stain asks. The answer is silence. Very well. I pronounce you a fake hero. A villain that became a false idol to the masses. An insult to the very concept of heroism. And the punishment for that is death. The sword raises. The first 3 wildcards arrive at the scene. Up until this moment, Izuku's plan was going swimmingly. Local heroes were occupied with the distractions. Policemen were running around like headless chicken. Endeavor had his crimes exposed to the entire world. His voice changer makes sure that he doesn't stutter in his lines. In short, it is going perfectly. Then, right before Stain could nail Endeavor to the ground with his sword, the hero number 2 suddenly vanishes. Something pulled him underground, the massive body somehow melting into it. What the? Stain is startled too. He takes a step back and looks around, then gets kicked in the face by something small and very, very quick. Izuku curses quietly. Endeavor emerges from the ground 20 meters away from them. Next to him is someone wearing the familiar armor of the Ingenium, and another hero, whom he recognizes instantly as he watched him during the festival. Mirio Tagata. Lemillion. Since when can he move others underground? Izuku is confused. He would have known if that was a thing during the festival. Kurogiri. Legion says calmly. Evacuate other teams. Then come back. The Warper obeys and vanishes from the street. Something went wrong. It's time to pull out whoever he can, in case they need to be warped in as reinforcements. Didn't you hear what was just said, Lemillion? Legion shouts. The hero is surprised by being recognized. The man you are defending is a monster. Monster that no court in this country can touch. I do not care. Lemillion shouts back. If he truly committed these crimes, I'll make sure that he pays for them. But I will not let you murder him. Barrage of blows intensifies. Stain takes them all in silence, his hands protecting his face. First few doesn't shake him a bit, but then they stop working. His eyes dart around the street, following the attacker, reading his movements better and better with every second. Good answer, Lemillion. Izuku shouts cheerfully. You are a great hero, someone actually worthy of the title. Unfortunately, I'm still a villain. Reflex boost. Overhaul. He touches the ground under him. Overhaul can alter all matter, not just the biological one, something he intentionally forgot to mention to Detective Tsukachi. Now he takes advantage of that. Nobody can recognize the fact that he is using that man's quirk. He also takes advantage of the fact that he trained altering non-organic matter a lot. The ground shifts. Massive hands emerge from it in front of Lemillion and Ingenium's brother, made of concrete and asphalt. Lemillion shatters his with a surprisingly powerful punch, while Tenya Ada shouts Recipro Burst and breaks the other hand with a massive, supercharged kick. Super move, like Ingenium's, but with different placement of the engine. Izuku loves super moves, just like he loves heroes as a whole. Stain catches up. He observed the attacker, studying his moves under the relentless barrage of blows coming from everywhere. Finally, he is ready. The movement of his hand is too fast for Izuku to follow. He clenches his fingers on the attacker's leg and smashes him into the wall of the building next to him. Gran Torino, Lemillion shouts. The name is familiar. An old man slides down the wall, shaken and bleeding. Still conscious, but probably not for long. Izuku makes a connection. Stain, wait. The hero killer pauses in his steps. He is All Might's old mentor. Let him be. Stain thinks for a second. He is interrupted when Ingenium storms after him. The kick, still powered by the Recipro burst, pushes him back. But Stain is a combat veteran who is facing someone powered by rage, yet essentially inexperienced. Tenya Ada feels satisfaction only for a few seconds. Then his body collapses on the ground, paralyzed by Stain's quirk. He didn't even notice the shallow cut on his leg. "You I will spare in memory of your brother." Stain recognized the kid too. He is standing victorious over two fallen heroes, but is magnanimous in his victory. Neither of them were his prey for tonight, and because you rushed in to save him. He looks towards Gran Torino. "And you I spare because I do not kill the elderly." He walks beside them, ignoring the curses that Tenya throws at him. His target is the still paralyzed Endeavor, lying on the street behind Lemillion. Lemillion comes to a decision. Izuku can see that in his eyes. The ground under him explodes, and Izuku sees bursts of electricity surrounding his fist and legs. None of this makes sense. He dashes forward, too fast for Izuku's eyes to follow. Survivor, life support. The lights go out. The impact was impossibly powerful. Stain was a veteran of hundreds of fights. He saw a lot of things, but his fights tended to be cut short by his quirk. And before this day, he never saw up close how the true power looks like. The street vanished. The hero kid stands there, panting heavily. His right arm is visibly broken and shattered, and he seems to be barely able to stand upright. Before him, Stain sees nothing. Steam and dust cover everything, but he can see damages on the buildings on both sides of the street going on forever. Izuku disappeared. Stain stands up from the ground. Only now he realizes that what sent him there was the air pressure of the punch. He heard that All Might could do such a thing, but a school kid? The strength was absurd, but the speed wasn't. Stain had time to leap back and cover the fallen Ingenium and the fallen hero. It was an instinct. The danger he felt from the young hero was so overwhelming that he didn't think before he acted. But now he stands up, and feels particularly murderous. What happened to Izuku? Did he? Hand emerges from the smoke. The hero kid is too close to it and too exhausted to react in time. When it touches him, his remaining arm and legs twist unnaturally, and the young hero screams and falls to the ground. Then the rest of Izuku emerges from the smoke. Stain has no idea how Izuku is still able to stand. The front of his hoodie was practically vaporized by the hit, and so was most of the skin under it. His mask vanished somewhere, exposing his true face to the world. He is bleeding profusely from everywhere. And if that isn't enough, his right arm is just gone. "That was really close, Lemillion." The voice is weak, but not inaudible. "Just a little bit faster or a little bit stronger, and you would take me out. And then you could focus on Stain. You would probably save Endeavor. You are a really cool hero, you know. You broke your arm saving someone whom you knew didn't deserve that." Izuku turns his head toward Stain. "Finish him before the paralysis ends." Kurogiri appears from nowhere, his face unreadable. He floats quickly towards Izuku, who gestures to him to stay back. Stain starts walking towards the fallen flame fake. To say no to an order said by someone who kept standing despite wounds like that is unthinkable. The strength of conviction alone is almost unmatched, equal to his, perhaps more. He is impressed, more than he would like to admit. Lemillion and Tenya curse him. He doesn't care. He never did. Gran Torino remains unconscious, slumped by the wall. Did he bleed out when no one was looking? That's when the fourth wildcard makes a move. It started a few minutes before Lemillion's desperate punch almost vaporized Izuku Midori. In a place well hidden in one of the many forested areas of Japan, movement starts. More and more people and equipment appear out of nowhere, their leader rushing her plans to take advantage of the unexpected. Nobody notices as one of the people sends an urgent message to her childhood friend. The rest, as they say, is history. Kurogiri is terrified. He knows he is intimidating. He is mostly composed of creepy black mist, almost a walking definition of a villainous quirk. But deep inside, he is a big softy, as Izuku often says. He is also a Namu. He knows that. What his creators do not realize is that he recovered most of his memories a long time ago. He didn't particularly care. He might have been a young hero in another life, but right now he is Kurogiri. His old memories might as well be a film he once watched. He feels no attachment to it, nor to any of the actors that starred in it. But he does to the kids he helped bring up. Tenko and Himiko could as well be his natural children. To the rest he is either an adoptive almost a parent or a favorite uncle. Now he saw one of them dying. on the TV, seconds before he was supposed to warp there. Everyone else is out of the city. He was too late. Or not. Izuku emerges from the smoke. Kurogiri warps to Hasu, his invisible face contorted with an expression of horror. He has no idea how Izuku is still alive, much less how he is still standing and telling Stain to finish the job. And then he gestures to Kurogiri to wait, to not teleport him to the doctor to patch him up. Kurogiri doesn't know what to do. Izuku's father probably knows. Too bad that Izuku made sure that he was the only line of contact between them. Kurogiri can warp there, but it would take minutes, and then he can feel his telephone vibrating. Stain slowly walks towards the fallen Endeavor. The two hero kids curse him to stop. I think that message is for you, Kurogiri says to Izuku, his voice only outwardly calm. Oh yeah. Izuku chuckles and spits blood. I think I lost my phone. Clumsy me. He picks up Kurogiri's phone and looks at the screen. Then his face freezes in shock. Kurogiri can see the conversation from his position. UA spy, QLF is attacking Hasu. UA spy, right now. UA spy, get everyone out. UA spy, run. Somewhere at the horizon a glowing arrow is launched. It flies upward, towards the night sky above them. Stain freezes and tries to figure out what it is. Warp everyone out, Izuku suddenly says. His face, calm even after his horrific injuries, is now filled with terror. Even heroes. Leave only Endeavor. Stain hears it, and turns his face to look at Izuku. What he sees on his face shocks him. Now, Kurogiri warps everyone out without questioning it. Few seconds later the arrow explodes, and everywhere in Hasu the quirks stop working. The cameraman is shocked by the turn of events. He isn't Tanio Tokuda. Instead, he is someone else that was tasked with the job. Tokuda is too valuable person to risk his life, and, however dumb he feels about it right now, the man who just filmed the era change has volunteered. He somehow remains untouched by the hero's punch. Somehow is probably due to him finding a good hideout. He has experience in that. Then something unexpected happens. The League of Villains members vanish, taking most of the heroes with them. He is left alone with still paralyzed Endeavor. Something explodes at the horizon. Endeavor's flaming hair vanishes. The hero stands up a few seconds later. Endeavor, says a figure floating in the air in front of the fallen hero. She is wearing some form of tight body armor, including a gas mask. The cameraman can see black discs with yellow outlines floating around her in the air, one of them serving as a platform for her to stand. Eclipse, the flame hero replies, didn't expect to see you tonight. His voice is subdued and burned out. He knows what's going to happen now. The League destroyed him, but the QLF will kill him. I had to rush my plans a little. The leader of the QLF and one of the most wanted people in Japan replies with a hint of cheerfulness in her voice. When I heard of the League's assault on Hasu, and on your presence here, I simply had to come say hello. So, now you have power, and I'm powerless, Endeavor says quietly. Ironic. Truly, Eclipse replies and beheads the number 2 hero with a flick of her finger. Behind her, the city begins to burn. They warp back to the bar. Izuku barely has the time to register what has happened when Himiko leaps at him, tears in her eyes. She doesn't grab him, she just stands right in front of him, not sure what to do. Everything will be alright, Izuku says weakly. Stain, the serial killer is there. On his face, a complicated mix of emotions. The two captives scream at them. Get them unconscious. Now, Himiko, find Mei and bring her prisoner collars. He wants to go to sleep, but he knows that if he does, he will never wake up. Survivor is a quirk that levels down fatal wounds into near-fatal ones. It should have several charges, but Lemillion Punch, it was one for all at full power. He just knows it. He was just United States of Smash like his dad was twice, ate through all of them at once. What kept Izuku alive after that was life support, a quirk that let him maintain his own life despite blood loss and wounds, for as long as the damage received wasn't instantly fatal. It was a perfect combo with Survivor, but now the Survivor was out of charges, and life support was burning out quickly. Using Overhaul and life support combo to take out Lemillion might have been a mistake. Why did it tire him out so much? He needs to reset himself. But if he does that while the captives are conscious, he will have to kill them. Tsukachi and Eraserhead know that Overhaul could reset wounds to his body. They will connect the dots. They will figure out who Izuku's father is, and then the League will be destroyed. His friends will die. They already know too much for his taste. He can only hope that Legion's ability to influence inorganic matter that he proved during his brief fight with Lemillion will fool them. Stain doesn't ask questions. He senses urgency in Izuku's voice. Lemillion and Tenya are knocked out promptly, and their insults and cries die down. Izuku uses Overhaul. The power refuses to work. He used too much energy. There is nothing left to heal him. Is he going to die? No, Kurogiri. He slumps down on the floor. Everyone is panicked. Too panicked to know what to do. Izuku makes a mental note to organize them some first aid lessons, but forgets about it immediately. Trigger, the special one. Now, orders still work. Kurogiri brings it quickly. One of Overhaul's special brand of trigger. Something to give him a boost, without the nasty side effects. Izuku raided his fridge back then. He fails to inject it. Someone helps him. The energy courses through him. He tries the reset again. It works. His body shifts. His wounds close and his arm is restored. His eyes work again. His lungs take in air with renewed vigor. But he is still exhausted and he can feel his consciousness beginning to slip again. Did he fail to heal himself fully? Or is he just too tired to stay awake? He sees Mustard right next to him. Shocked looks on the faces of the Stain's sidekicks. Stain's eyes flare. He recognizes the quirk. He has questions, but he won't ask them now. Check Torino, Izuku says. Doesn't specify whom he speaks of. Hands pull him back to the nearby couch and lie him down on it. He's dead. Stain's voice is remorseless. Izuku refuses to accept that. It wasn't long, he can still. Bring him here, he orders. He knows that he will reveal too much, but Gran Torino was All Might's mentor. He was Lemillion's mentor. He will not become the end of such a hero, or he will never be able to forgive himself. They listen to him. He activates Overhaul when he feels something under his fingertips. He hears the old man inhaling suddenly. Then some sounds of struggle, and a shocked shout of, "Was that Himiko?" He floats off. The list of Japanese supervillains. SSS rank. Redistro. Eclipse. SS rank. Mr. Compress. Curity. Beast. Legion. S rank. Getten. Slidden Go. Stain. Chronostasis. UA Spy. How is he doing? Vampire Princess. Still unconscious. It's been 4 days. Vampire Princess. I'm worried. Cat Provider. You shouldn't. It's a quirk exhaustion. Vampire Princess. I saw him almost die. How am I supposed to not be worried? Cat Provider. Himiko. I understand that. I felt the same when I saw him emerge from that smoke, looking like a walking corpse. Cat Provider. Lashing out on me won't help him. But I know that if he was awake, he would be worried about you being worried. Vampire Princess. Using him against me is underhanded papagiri. Insomniac. He is right though. Then again, what is Small Might not worried about? Handyman. I remember him almost bawling because he wasn't sure if I was going to like the game he bought me as a present. Handyman. Damn, that was years ago. UA Spy. What about the new members? Are they staying? Vampire Princess. Yeah, boss has left an impact. Sneaky Gecko. You could just ask us directly, you know. Sneaky Gecko. We are new to the villain network, so we aren't here a lot. But still, UA Spy. Sorry. Sneaky Gecko. NP Mr. Spy. Sneaky Gecko. And as Vampire said, Legion. Seriously. Holy shit, what is that guy made of? Sneaky Gecko. That punch looked like United States of Smash. Sneaky Gecko. And he stood up after it. Sneaky Gecko. Seriously, WTF. Insomniac. Welcome to the club of people seriously confused by the shit bosses pulling off regularly. Insomniac. We should get t-shirts. Insomniac. With his face enlarged, how does it even work above it? Vampire Princess. Lol, I want one. Cat Provider. You should all be happy that I immediately warped to his house and told his parents that he is alright and will make a full recovery. Sneaky Gecko. Why? Vampire Princess. Because his mystery dad would have fucking burned Japan to the ground if his son died. Cat Provider. This, but without an expletive. Sneaky Gecko. Is his dad redistro? Fuck school. Welcome to the club of the enlightened. Insomniac. Jesus Christ, not another one. Vampire Princess. I kinda think that his dad is the guy that stalks Redistro in his nightmares. Vampire Princess. Can't tell you anything more unless boss wakes up and says that I can. Sneaky Gecko. I'm equally curious and terrified. Insomniac. Welcome to the yet another club, this time of people that aren't sure if they want to know the truth about boss past. Vampire Princess. So what are we doing with the prisoners, BTW? Haven't seen them in a while now that I think about it. Sneaky Gecko. Stain had Zealot patch the Mini Ingenium and Mr. Megaton punch, then he gave all three those shock/quirk suppression collars and keeps them locked. Sneaky Gecko. I think he waits for Legion to wake up before decisions, but hard to say. Sneaky Gecko. He kinda stopped talking to people and just hounds around Midoriya's bed. Fuck school. Okay, so. Fuck school. Can we finally address the part? Fuck school. Where Small Might fucking resurrected that old man. Fuck school. How does his quirk even works? Fuck school. Can quirks even do that? Fuck school. I'm so confused. Handyman. Boss is obviously a cleric. Handyman. Kills and heals and rises with touch. Handyman. But he is overleveled and a min-maxer. Handyman. Does All Might count as a deity? I am confused. Insomniac. Izuku being the LVL 20 cleric of All Might sounds about right, lol. Cat Provider. I would have rather addressed the fact that Japan is going down the drain. QLF just destroyed another town. Vampire Princess. Crap. Did they use the gas again? Cat Provider. Yes. Then they rolled in with soldiers and tanks through the Eclipse's warp gate, blew up local police stations, hero agencies, a support item factory and workshops, governmental offices, and setting lots of fire at random, plus shoot whomever they didn't like. cat provider, minimal resistance, as always. But media speculate that QLF is running out of war supplies. It's the 4th day in the 4th town. They can't have that much equipment stashed up. Also, all heroes out there are investing into gas masks, so the resistance should be increasing. Insomniac. Boss is going to have a field day over this when he wakes up. Izuku wakes up, which is quite reassuring. When he was falling asleep, part of him suspected that overhaul failed to fix everything and he was going to die. He is still in pain. Not a powerful one, but an ever-present one. How long was he lying on the bed? How long was he unconscious? What did he miss? We have things to talk about, kid. Stain is there. Of course he is there. The serial killer is sitting in a chair next to the entrance to the room, eyeing Izuku with an unreadable face. Not even a great to see you awake or something. Izuku is slightly sad, although not like he expected anything else. Not from Uncle Stain. Quirk. His voice is still a bit meek, so he cleared his throat profusely. Things should be better now. Yes, Stain replies coldly. I had suspicions earlier, but now I'm certain. That's Overhaul's quirk. How is that possible? Have you ever heard the urban legend about the quirk thief? Stain nods. That makes things a lot easier. Well, the quirk thief is my father. Stain stares at him blankly. Izuku isn't surprised. What he just did was an equivalent of a particularly hairy American to claim to be a son of a Bigfoot. The more I learn about you, the more I'm not sure what to do with you. Stain finally says, slay you, follow you, put you in jail, talk with your family to give you a house arrest. The hero killer sighs loudly. From your friend's reaction, I assume that they don't know. Izuku nods. If one of them got caught and the police found out, Izuku shakes his head. The Hero Commission and Nedzu would have dropped their disagreements and focused on the destruction of the League. Quirk Thief is a power equal to All Might in his prime. Now that he is weakened, I don't think that even the symbol of peace can defeat him. But they all think that he is dead. Somehow, Stain doesn't comment on the equal to All Might part. Izuku is genuinely surprised by it. So you do not trust your friend's conviction and dedication to your cause enough to tell them the truth. Stain's eyes narrow. Is that how far your faith in them goes? Do you have the faintest idea what they went through? They saw you dying. They didn't know that you could pull out from it. And now they are all moping in their rooms for most of their day, at best chatting with each other on the internet, mostly about you. He clicks his tongue. I'm a killer, not a therapist. They need you. Getting this talk from a serial killer with 50-something victims under his belt is slightly surreal to Izuku. Then again, what in his life wasn't surreal recently? Fine. Izuku sighs. You are right. I'll tell the old League members the truth. The whole truth. But I'm leaving your folk until I get to know them more. They are yours now. Stain replies. But it's acceptable. For now. He is about to leave the room when Izuku calls him out. Wait. Stain stops and looks at him. What about the Hero Commission? And Endeavor? What did I miss? Eclipse killed Endeavor in front of cameras. Stain replies. Stealing our show and saving the Hero Commission. The blow we dealt to it was a lethal one. But Eclipse is fighting a war against Japan and seems to be winning. So the commission managed to save itself by pointing out that this isn't the good time for it to be taken down. But Stain shrugs. To that day, society was split 50-50 between it and the UA. But now you get lynched on the internet for saying something nice about the commission. So a job well done, even if someone else killed that fake. It was one of the nicest things Stain ever said to anyone. Izuku is certain about that. Also, your spy mentioned something about the gas being a quirk suppressor rather than quirk erasure. Stain continues, and Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. Chronostasis is now a public figure in an S rank. I'm an S rank too, and you, although the world thinks you are dead, have been provisionally promoted to the SS rank. Izuku's eyes widen. Also, we are still housing the captives. The Todoroki family vanished, but the spy says that Nedzu is housing them in secret in the UA. And the QLF is burning down cities left and right because Eclipse apparently learned how to use her quirk as a warp gate. Anything else? No, that's all. Izuku decides to not strain their relationship any further. Stain doesn't seem to enjoy being his personal news service. Thank you. Good. He pulls out a phone and slowly starts to push some buttons on it. Very slowly. He doesn't seem to be used to using a phone like that. What are you doing, Uncle Stain? Izuku has a gut feeling that it isn't anything good. I'm making sure that you have the occasion to have a certain talk. Stain finishes whatever he was doing and returns his phone to his pocket. I wish you luck surviving it. Then he leaves. Izuku has something like 15 seconds to keep wondering what was that about, before the door to his room opens up abruptly and his eyes meet Himiko's. Oh, she proves how agile she is by pretty much jumping at him from the entrance, landing on his bed right next to him and immediately going for a hug. Himiko. He is about to say something, but she doesn't let him. Just shut up for a moment. Dummy, she replies. So he does as she said. Besides, he missed that. But after maybe half a minute she pulls back and looks at him up close. Do you have the tiniest idea how scared I was? I thought you were dying. Is it a good idea to tell her that he did, in fact, almost died? if he got the overhaul's special trigger a few seconds later. No, probably not. She is already shaken. No need to risk shattering her completely. I'm sorry, Himi. He smiles, in a sad and thoughtful way. I kept you and others in the dark for a bit too long, and it backfired. So I'm going to explain everything to you today. I promise. All right, she replies. But you should also promise me to not try to stop All Might grade punches with your body anymore. I promise. He isn't planning to do that again if he can avoid that. Lemillion didn't seem to change the weather with the impact. So it wasn't the full United States of Smash. More like 7 to -80% of the power of the All Might's strongest hit. If it was All Might himself, or if Lemillion got more training. He prefers not to think about it. Tenko and Hitoshi arrive. The gamer is silent, but in an emotional way. He doesn't have a way with words. And when thrown out of his comfort zone, he tends to do this. He just shuts down and observes. The lover of cats and caffeine is visibly reassured and with a rare smile on his face. And he hopes I get to hug him too. Mindscrew asks. Nope. Himiko shuts him down promptly and hugs Izuku closer. She is practically lying on him. He's mine and I'm not sharing him with you. Mindscrew chuckles. Mustard and, surprisingly enough, Gremlin roll in right after them. Oh, Gremlin was visibly sad. I hoped you were missing your arm. I recently read a few things about cybernetic prosthetics and I had so many ideas for new babies. She's so genuine in her disappointment that they can't even hold it against her. Mustard lets out a brief chuckle. Kurogiri is there, standing silently in the corner. Nobody noticed him appearing, but he fits there. The room would be half empty without him. So now that we were spared from having to fight a cybernetic zombie legion, Mustard announces, and is met with laughs and a disoriented stare from Gremlin. I just want to say that it's good to see you back. But I have so many damn questions. The door behind them closes silently. Stain. Of course, the hero killer leaves nothing to chance. Actually, Izuku takes a deep breath. I think it's time for me to answer them all. Mustard's eyes flare up. So, have you ever heard the legend of the quirk thief? Izuku asks right after telling Mei to record the talk, and he is met with surprised stares. Tenko is obviously lost, but to the mastermind's surprise, so are the others. Oh yeah, I know it. Mustard comes to the rescue. It's a very old urban legend in Japan, about a man who can take and give quirks. It's a bit like the UFOs. Almost no one believes in him, but you still get supposed sightings here and there. The irony of Mustard discounting the one and only true conspiracy theory as falsehood almost sends Izuku laughing. Now that's a broken opus is hell power if I ever heard about one. Tenko finally speaks. Why doesn't he just conquer the country if he can just take everyone's power for himself? Take it all and make yourself a god emperor rather than half-ass it. Izuku sometimes asked himself the same question. Mei is almost salivating, probably after imagining all the potential babies coming from a combination of more than one quirk. Izuku chuckles internally. This talk is going to be fun. Just hopefully not a lethal one to anyone. He's my father, Izuku announces. Suddenly everyone stares at him, looking as if they weren't sure if they heard him correctly. He's what? Mustard is the first one to speak, if that's a conscious attempt. Otherwise it's just an incidental mumble. The legendary quirk thief is my father. Izuku clarifies his answer. He is 236 years old, is part of the first generation of the quirked, and carries 562 quirks in his body the last time I checked. The silence continues, so Izuku decides to break it. But he can only equip about 15 of them at any given moment, so he is only massively overpowered rather than completely broken. He can see them all trying to process the news. They know he is no liar, but what he just said was too groundbreaking and impossible for them to accept it instantly. Holy shit. Mustard is, once again, the first one to speak. This isn't a joke, right? No, it isn't. Izuku replies. For something like 2 centuries he was pretty much a shadow emperor of Japan. He ruled its entire underworld, getting people to follow him by granting them quirks he took from those who defied him. He did the same thing to many politicians, and has disposed of pesky heroes whenever and however he wanted. But he retired recently, after getting 2 consecutive United States of Smash to the face and spending 6 years on life support. All Might beat him? Hitoshi is torn between awe and shock. Like, how? And that is a very good question. 1 quirk versus 15 sounds like an unfair fight, to say the least. They have a history together. Izuku replies. It's time for the probably even bigger revelation. But, well, no more lies. Long time ago my dad had a brother who was thought to be quirkless but was a hero at heart. A true hero. Father gave him a weak power stockpiling quirk, probably as a method of control. He was kinda a dick back in his time, Izuku says, unleashing an understatement of a millennium. Turned out that the brother had a fairly useless quirk that allowed itself to be transferred to others, without any other ability. But it fused with the power stockpiling quirk and created something special. So for 2 centuries my uncle and then his descendants were rising to challenge my father. their quirk growing stronger with every inheritor until finally the most recent holder, All Might, was strong enough to win. Narrowly, Dad apparently tore out All Might's stomach and lung, and was only taken down because he didn't expect All Might to charge at him with his innards sticking out. Izuku sighs. To make things look even more like a grisly fairy tale, Dad's quirk is called All for One, while his brother's called One for All. That's, wow, Mustard announces after a few seconds of complete silence. I mean, holy shit, I don't even know how to comment on that. Even the years he spent with increasingly outlandish conspiracy theories didn't prepare him for that. Welcome to the club, Mindscrew replies, the shock on his face equaling the signs of insomnia in strength. Just, why didn't you mention that earlier? Himeko and Tenko seem to agree with that question, eyeing Izuku curiously. Because I was afraid. Izuku answers honestly, not about myself, but about you. If even a single one of you got caught and said something that would make Netsu or the commission suspect I'm in any way or shape connected with the quirk thief, it would be the end of everything. My father is Japan's unspoken Bugaman. All Might, Netsu and the president of the Hero Commission probably still have nightmares about him. If there was even a shadow of doubt about his apparent death, the UA and HPSC would immediately stop fighting and would work together to annihilate the League and everyone connected to it. Still, I'm sorry for hiding all of that from you. Now that sounds like a very Izuku thing to do. Emiko replies after a few seconds. She is still hugging him, so things can't be that bad. I think I can say apologies accepted for everyone here, yes. They all agree, either vocally or through nods. Izuku's heart burns. His friends are the best, and he is certain he doesn't deserve them. Yeah, we kind of figured out that if you are hiding something from us it is probably for our sake. Tenko adds, your alignment is pure good, player 2. Throw some malice into it if you want to be a proper villain. Izuku chuckles. Yeah, sorry for that. He takes a deeper breath. Time to unleash another bomb. But now my secrecy has brought a serious problem upon our heads. Namely, we took the newest holder of the One for All prisoner. All Might is probably livid right now. Wait, Lemillion. Mindscrew asks the first. Oh shit, that punch. He also connects the dots. Yes, Izuku replies and sighs loudly. It was probably transferred recently, as All Might still has his powers left. The strength amplification is all there, and Lemillion's natural quirk, permeation, was also reawakened into a stronger form. Gran Torino, that elderly guy, also happens to be All Might's old mentor and a former close friend of the hero that All Might got the quirk from. Izuku decides that he isn't going to half-ass his honesty. Don't know how to say that, but I did some digging after I heard of it, and I'm almost certain that it was your grandmother, Tenko. Tenko simply stares. He is overwhelmed, but only briefly. I see, he replies finally. Well, I have never met her, so no hard feelings. There is a tension and awkward silence after that. Izuku didn't say that his father murdered his grandmother, but it was heavily implied. And true, do you think Lemillion will let me make a baby with him? May suddenly announces, I'm sure I can make one that will hold against his strength, and she pauses and looks at them weirdly, as everyone other than her starts to laugh. They never change. Hitoshi is the first to regain the ability to speak. You're absolutely perfect when you are yourself. Yeah, Izuku smiles widely. You'll have to ask Lemillion himself. Just please wait until we'll all be in the room. I can't wait to see his reaction. Hatsume stares at him in confusion. Her complete ignorance of social cues means that she fails to grasp what's so funny to them. She was completely serious. She heard all that was said, but support items are the only things on her mind. Okay, so any other shocking revelations? Himiko asks. We already have a lot to think about. Actually, one more thing. Izuku says and clears his throat. It's about my quirk. Yeah, I was meaning to ask. Mustard has mostly recovered from the earlier shock. What is your quirk? You literally resurrected that grandpa and fixed yourself in like a second from obviously mortal wounds. Level 20 Cleric of All Might. Tenko mumbles. Izuku hears that and breaks out in laughter. It's too ridiculously funny to not do that. He isn't the only one to laugh, but none goes off as much as he does. Holy shit, Tenko. Izuku calms himself down. Okay, back to the subject. The quirk I used isn't technically mine. It belonged to Overhaul. Gasps, some shock, and faint I knew it on Himiko's face. So your dad gave it to you after you dealt with Overhaul? Himiko asks. I suspected it from the moment you told me about his quirk. Papajiri mentioned that your dad was involved in the Shai Hasekai raid, so you were quirkless before that? Yes. Yesn't? Now she stares at him questioningly. Father took Overhaul's quirk from him and gave it to me. I refused to take any from him earlier. Because honestly, they are almost uniformly stolen, and from people I don't even know, but in most cases were pretty nice. But Overhaul, he was my catch, so to speak, and I knew that Overhaul deserved having his quirk taken. He takes a deeper breath. It's going to get wild. Only when he transferred it to me, it turned out that I already had a quirk. I was probably going to be a natural late bloomer like Eclipse, but the quirk transfer awoke it earlier. And this second quirk was, all for one. Stunned silence. Even May registered the words and was shocked. Oh my god. Mindscrew speaks first. He is probably in equal terms amazed by what he just heard and terrified by the implications of what's going to happen if that knowledge goes public. And perhaps by the implication of the number one quirk nerd having a quirk that lets him take quirks. How many? Tenko goes straight for the throat. 10 quirks at the moment. Izuku replies. But I can only keep 2 active besides the all for one. Dad said it will get stronger with time and training. And that he could only keep 1 active when he was my age. He decides to not mention how he, at some point in his life, played catch with his dad. Catch with quirks. Good training method. But rather an odd thing to describe. But only overhaul is actually stolen. The rest I got by looking through palliative care wards and buying them from people. Nobody notices that some old and infirm people stop using their quirks, and I had a lot of money to pay their families, so this is how you survived the punch. Himiko, of course, connects the dots first. Well, yeah, Izuku replies. I used survivor and life support. The former lets me scale down a lethal wound to nearly lethal several times, although the punch shaved off all charges from it. Life support is a quirk that keeps me alive for as long as I do not suffer an instantly fatal wound. Then is the overhaul and all for one that I already mentioned. The remaining 6 quirks are reflex boost, strength amp, night vision, notice me not, slow-mo, and long day. I can figure out the first 3 easily. Tenko comments. The rest, notice me not, just makes me harder to spot and focus on. Izuku explains. But it works best when I'm in a crowd or there is something else to gather attention near me. Pretty useless if I use it now. Slow-mo makes me think way faster for up to 10 seconds, so I see everything move slowly. But I'm not moving any faster than said everything, so it's something to use to quickly conjure a plan when surprised by something. And long day, that was going to get nasty. Lets me wake up fully rested after 4 hours of sleep. I hate you and I'm going to the police if you don't give it to me. Mindscrew's reply is instant. Mustard and Himiko laugh. Tenko only grins. I thought about it, actually. Izuku answers promptly and hurriedly. But without the all for one to save as a foundation. There is like a 30% chance that giving you a second quirk will turn you brain dead. Is that a risk you're willing to take? I would if it was 20%. Mindscrew replies and grins tiredly. More laughter in the room. Alright, so this time I'll be the one to ask. Any more shocking revelations? Actually, maybe just one tiny little thing. Izuku answers and Hitoshi gives him a death glare. Hellhound and the other beasts we used during the assault were made by an old co-worker of my father. Old, as in he has a longevity quirk and is more than a century old. Also he is a mad scientist to equal overhaul. Himiko stares at him with badly concealed anger. He doesn't know I'm my dad's son, and he thinks that he died. But not before making me, a completely random kid, his successor and handing over his quirk. So I'm doing my best to limit his maniacal evilness while figuring out how to safely dismantle his petty empire. Because if he goes renegade or I try to take him down and he survives, he might announce to the world that I'm my father's successor and then we are all dead. And those, now Miss Mustard asks, animals bearing some weak quirk, given more by me and him, while also seriously revamped biologically by our resident Dr. Evil. Izuku replies honestly. He thinks I'm stealing said quirks, but I'm just getting them from Dad. Or at least the second-gen Naumus are former animals. Izuku takes a deep breath. He used humans before I took the business over. Being brain-dead and unfailingly obedient was apparently a feature rather than bug back then. I want to stab him, Himiko announces. Even May is horrified, probably due to comparing her babies with doctors. She is a villainous scientist, technically but an ethical one. More or less, at least when she doesn't have one of her episodes. Yes, Himi. Izuku pets her head a bit. I'll let you do that when the time is right, okay. She nods and returns to hugging him as if she was afraid that he'll vanish somewhere if she lets him go. I think that's all my secrets, so let me sum that up. Mindscrew to the rescue. You are an heir to the Shadow Emperor of Japan who is so terrifying that people thought that he was an urban legend. A man who has pretty much beaten All Might to half-death. You also inherited his unfairly overpowered quirk and eternal rivalry with All Might and his successor, which happens to be locked in our dungeon, although they aren't aware that you have that quirk plus 9 more. And if they or the world finds out, literally entire Japan will try to murder us. Izuku nods. Oh, and you have a working relationship with a mad scientist to end all mad scientists. But you look forward to backstabbing him because he reached a completely new level of animal abuse previously unheard of in this world. Did I miss something? The part where Hellhound can switch between combat and deliciously pettable forms at will. Himiko announces. He is their house dog. And his mom doesn't know. The stares move from Izuku to her. So, of course, she gives them a wry smile and continues. I think I mentioned on the chat how his dog would chew All Might if someone told him to. Yes. And I thought that my character backstory was messed up. Tenko ends the stunned silence. You a spy? Okay, so I listened to the recording. Then I listened to it again and again. Then I deleted it, as you said. You a spy? Holy shit. Small Might, yes, Small Might, welcome to my life. Small Might, it's beyond messed up. You a spy? Yes. Small Might, how's you a doing? You a spy. The rat would probably marry you if you asked. You a spy. I caught him singing in his office. You a spy, he is that happy. And my ears are in undescribable pain. Small Might, holy shit. You a spy, XD. You a spy, you have won as war, pretty much. Sure, the commission is still strong in funds and covert operatives, but your stunt in Hasu has pretty much murdered its public support. You a spy. 4 million people signed a petition to rename it into the Villain Public Safety Commission. And it's still getting signed. You a spy. A lot of people claimed that Dabai was talking shit, but then the 2 rejected kids of Endeavor came forward, confirmed all that was said, and mysteriously vanished. Nedzu played that masterfully. You a spy. Also, Eraserhead got the youngest Todoroki to go to a quirk counseling and therapy. You a spy. Even the diet starts mentioning that some reforms are needed once the QLF is stopped. If they didn't, they can forget about re-election even with commission support. You a spy. All Might, Sir Night-Eye and Eraserhead are absolutely livid, though. Small Might, I'm going to deal with them when I deal with the captives. You a spy, sounds nasty. Small Might, nah. Small Might, how's Blueberry? You a spy, fighting on the front line. I saw her in a recording from one of the cities. You a spy, she doesn't look super happy about what's happening. Small Might, crap, keep me updated. If she needs a lift out of the QLF, we're ready to provide it. Small Might, I might even throw in a quirk if she wants to. You a spy, I'll keep that in mind. You a spy, and I won't mention the quirk offer until she's out. Small Might, smart co-workers are a blessing. Akatani Mikumo, I lived bitch. Sawatekio, oh shit you're alive. Sawatekio, dude I already had you dead and buried in my mind. Akatani Mikumo, was pretty damn close but the QLF missed. Akatani Mikumo. Holy shit what a mess. Akatani Mikumo, don't tell Eraser that I'm back, I'm going to tell him myself. Sawatekio, okay. Sawatekio, so the big boss told me to ask you. Sawatekio, did you know about the QLF attack? Akatani Mikumo, I found out like 5 minutes before it happened. Akatani Mikumo, had only enough time to hide in the basement and pull out a gas mask. I didn't think that the QLF could make it a gas, but I knew that Chronostasis is oddly competent at times, so I prepared for the worst case scenario. Sawatekio, so in this case, Big Boss told me to tell you that we are extremely grateful for your warning. Sawatekio, the Alliance avoided casualties in Hasu thanks to you. Akatani Mikumo, what would have happened if I knew earlier but didn't tell anyone? Sawatekio, you don't want to know. Akatani Mikumo, fair. Akatani Mikumo, GTG bye. When Lemillion returns to the cell, his splints are gone, but he is able to walk normally. No sign of broken bones. And he had a lot of them. You alright, kid? Gran Torino asks in a worried tone. Tenya stares from the back of the room. The second Ingenium seems to be powered mostly by spite and hatred towards Stain, and Gran Torino and Lemillion failed to fix it thus far. Yes, sensei. Lemillion replies before sitting down on the floor. No idea what they did to me, but my bones are fixed. They put me on the stretcher outside of the room, made me breathe in something that left me unconscious, and I woke up able to walk. Mirio shakes his head. He is genuinely confused. One of them, I think it was Mindscrew, told me to not overdo it, because if I move too much before they mend themselves properly, I'll break them again. It sounds reasonable enough. The healing quirks are rare, especially as Lemillion doesn't appear exhausted, so whatever they did to him doesn't work like the recovery girl's quirk. What are the chances of League having access to someone more powerful than her? They are imprisoned for 4 days now, without news from the outside. Even their very captors didn't appear particularly interested in them. One of them splinted and bandaged Lemillion's broken limbs. 2 or 3 others are bringing them food. There is also someone nearby to lead them to the nearest toilet if they shout. Lemillion is still smiling. He agrees with Sir Night-Eye. For as long as you maintain your spirits and are capable of joking and smiling, you aren't broken, even when your limbs are. Gran Torino smacked his head when he said that aloud yesterday. The part where he is now a murderer is much harder to swallow. Oi, kid. Gran Torino spots it, of course. Don't make this face. It's like you aren't sure if you are smiling or not. It's pissing me off. Just decide on one face and stick to it. Lemillion smiles a bit more. Listen, if I were you, I'd punt that asshole right in the face too. Sometimes you get villains like that. None of them even consider Legion's survival. Gran Torino didn't see him, but Lemillion's rushed description of events told him everything. You don't survive such wounds without being right next to a fully staffed hospital. I killed a kid. Lemillion replies quietly. He was, like what, 15 or 16 years old. Good. Ingenium mumbles in the corner. He deserved that. Gran Torino can't move like he used to with that damn quirk suppression collar, but he can still smack a student on his head when they deserve it. Ouch, Ingenium is startled. Stop that, Tenya, Gran Torino says with his best stern teacher you just pissed tone. It's unbecoming of a hero. It would make your brother smack your head like I did. And you are disrespectful to Lemillion's problems. Sorry, is all they get from Tenya. Gran Torino has a lot of work ahead of him. The door of their cell opens. It's the Lizardman. Boss wants to see you. All of you, he says. Tenya tenses. Gran Torino and Lemillion exchange gazes. Stained. They all follow the Lizardman through the hallway in whatever basement they are kept in, and then up the stairs. The League's hideout is large, way larger than any of them expected it to be. It's pretty much an apartment complex that was remodeled into a villain's lair. Gran Torino doesn't say that, but he is reasonably impressed. Then he sees a bar. The Warper is behind it, cleaning a glass. Dabai seems to be drinking something, flanked by the silent cross guy. Stain is next to the bar, his back on the wall and his hands crossed. The rest of the large room is a combination of couches, chairs, and tables. There is a large TV hanging down from the ceiling. Gran Torino and Lemillion scan the room. They see whom they suppose to be the Decay sitting on a chair with a game console. Then is the Mind Screw, his eyes on his phone. And, finally, two more members, watching some anime on the TV, cuddled together and eating snacks. Lemillion almost trips when he recognizes one of them. Hello there, Legion, the leader of the League of Villains. And the man that Lemillion killed waves towards them cheerfully. The girl he assumes to be the vampire smiles as well. Come take a seat, we need to talk. Lemillion almost shouts the question out loud, but he manages to push it back. Gran Torino and Tenya remain silent, but they were just as shocked as he was. They all sit next to each other on a couch next to the TV. Legion and Vampire sat in front of it, the captives to their left, and Mind Screw and Decay to their right. Sorry for the arrangements, Legion announces with a smile that actually feels genuine. I'm a bit starved after the treatment. Touch starved as well, apparently. How are you still alive? Lemillion goes straight to the point. He is, faintly relieved, to his own surprise. I'm tougher than I look, Legion replies. Lemillion is once again struck by how young the villain is. Apparently tough enough to get United States of Smashed and live to tell the tale. Lemillion gasps faintly. Does he? Yes, I figured it out. Legion replies promptly. Quirks normally don't have a time limit like All Might's does, so I did some digging. Found some cases of people with or without other quirks suddenly developing particularly powerful strength enhancement and, in case of those with other quirks, getting their primary power reawakened. So I made a theory that there is some form of a quirk that can get transferred between unrelated people. And then I saw you applying permeation to Endeavor and using a strength close to All Might's, and things clicked. Legion smiles widely. You are All Might's successor. He is what? The announcement takes Stain off guard. His crew is only marginally less surprised. The hero killer actually makes 3 steps in their direction between Legion speaks again. Stain. The hero killer freezes. I'm not going to kill him. I didn't save his life and get someone to fix his limbs just to kill him now. So would you kindly return to brooding over there and let me do my job? To the captive's shock, Stain obeys. They talked a lot about the League during the past 4 days. Yet the scenario when Stain was actually working for Legion somehow didn't occur to them. I don't remember you saving my life, Lemillion says immediately. His face is still reasonably cheerful, but there is a cold tint to his tone. I know, Legion replies, completely untouched by the hostility. We were all already out of Hasu when QLF detonated its chemical weapon and burned the city down. Eclipse arrived at the scene of our bout a few seconds after our escape and killed Endeavor. Also, I regret to inform you, that Manuel and his entire agency are on the casualties list of the fall of Hasu. Tenya stares in horror. Lemillion wants to not believe. I don't believe in any of that. Gran Torino is frank and painfully honest. You're free to, Legion replies, but you should look at the kids' faces. Unlike you, they saw the missile being launched. He does it, and there is shock on his face. The old hero starts to believe. When my informant told me that the QLF was attacking the city and I saw the missile, I immediately had you all warped out of the city with us. I also regret to inform you that Hasu is the first of 5 cities and towns that the QLF destroyed in a similar way during the past few days. Eclipse is waging and winning a war against Japan right now. There is silence. Tenya and Lemillion are scared about their families. They don't know what cities were attacked and what the situation outside was. Gran Torino's reaction is much more subdued. He is studying Legion, seeking to figure him out. Most of the League failed to do that in the last few years, until he came forward himself. Izuku wishes the old hero best of luck. Before we talk about your future, I'd like to ask you a question or two. Legion finally interrupts the silence. I want to find something out about All Might's quirk. Absolutely no. Gran Torino is adamant. I have no idea what you want, but this secret isn't something. Even if, Legion smiles wryly, I know a few things about it that may actually help Lemillion survive until his retirement. I doubt that you learned anything about All Might's quirk that even All Might himself didn't. Gran Torino remains adamant. Gran Torino, Legion chuckles. How many unrelated 9-year-old people managed to figure out that All Might got his quirk from Nana Shimura? And I have only got better since then. Silence in the room. Lemillion didn't even know that name until All Might mentioned it to him, right after Gran Torino agreed to be his special teacher. How about this? The old hero finally makes a decision. I'll answer your questions if you answer mine. Very well, Legion replies. I'm game. What's your question, old man? What is your quirk? Gran Torino asks. It makes sense, somewhat. Lemillion isn't sure why it seems so important to his mentor, but getting some intel on Legion was going to be useful in taking him down. Object alteration. Legion replies. He doesn't seem to have considered lying or not answering for even a second. I can alter the state and shape of an object on touch, so I can conjure hands out of concrete by altering an area of the said concrete, or disassemble a human being into very small bits, like I did with Thunderbolt. Additionally, make some smaller changes, like I did when I broke Lemillion's limbs, but it's mentally complicated and taxing. I can reset the changes I made, even after a few days. I can fix wounds caused by someone else too, but only within 15 minutes from when they were caused. This sounded like a versatile and extremely potent power for someone who was willing to get close to their enemy. It also sounded like a wonderful quirk for a rescue hero. Legion could easily disassemble parts of the collapsed building, and then heal whoever was wounded for as long as he arrived quickly enough. So, my turn. Legion asks while Gran Torino swallows the answer. How many past holders of this power did you manage to track? Before Nana, Gran Torino answers. Only one. And he was a rather secretive individual. Ah, I see. Legion pauses. You suck in information gathering and analysis, you know. I found 2 of his predecessors. Who? Gran Torino replies. His eyes widened. I'll consider that to be your question for this round. And answer. Legion replies calmly. And got the quirk from Degoro Banjo, the Black Whip hero. He, in turn, got it from Hikage Shinomori, pretty much a hermit who decided to spend his life in a forest, honing his quirk to give it to someone stronger. He was way more secretive than N, and I failed to find anyone in the line beyond him, though I suspect that there were a lot more. And now, my question. Is that quirk somehow connected to the quirk thief urban legend? Something flinches on the old hero's face. Lemillion has no idea what it is, but it's strange. He might have known him for a scarce few days, but he acted unlike himself. Why do you ask? Gran Torino seems on edge. And no, this isn't one of those questions, just a clarification. I love quirks, Legion replies. They are awesome. I lived for a few years as a quirkless. Everyone around me had those wonderful things, so naturally I started to be interested in them even more. This quirk is one of the most fascinating things I have ever heard about. I grew to suspect that the quirk thief isn't just an urban legend. And after I started investigating All Might's quirk, I found myself asking, what's the chance that 2 quirk-transferring quirks, unique in the world as a whole, found themselves on the same island? Doesn't it make much more sense if those 2 quirks were related? Perhaps one of them is a mutation from the other, so father and son. Legion tilts his head a little. Come on, indulge my curiosity. According to an old legend among those who know about that quirk, the first holder and the quirk thief were brothers. Gran Torino replies finally, one a villain to end all villains, and the other the true hero. Now my question, what's your actual agenda? You aren't asking simply out of curiosity. Was Gran Torino answering these questions? Because Legion mentioned something about prolonging Lemillion's life. He already proved to know a lot more than the old hero suspected. So did his mentor begin to suspect that there is something behind these, and is willing to make things public to test that. On the other hand, they are on Legion's mercy either way. He can announce the truth to the world whenever he wants. Well, I would ask simply out of curiosity if I had nothing more than that. Legion replies with a thoughtful look on his face. You wouldn't believe just long I can mumble about a single interesting quirk, and that one is beyond interesting. The vampire, silent thus far, chuckles loudly. But you are right, I have an agenda. It's about Hikage Shinomori. He received the quirk somewhere between his 18th and 20th birthdays. He is the second longest holder I found, right after All Might. But he died of old age, at the age of 46. What? Gran Torino is surprised. How's that possible? There is more than that. Legion replies. I got his medical data. He was practically breaking into pieces before his death. Doctors were completely stupefied, because they didn't know that Hikage received a special quirk from someone. Ever heard of quirk singularity theory? Neither of them did, judging from the looks on their faces. It's a theory according to which every subsequent generation is going to have stronger and stronger powers, due to both random mutations and inheritance, until finally human bodies will collectively start failing to survive under strain, leading to extinction of mankind. It's a bit of a fringe belief currently, but I believe that your quirk, Lemillion, is undergoing a similar scenario just on a micro scale and many times faster. What about All Might? Gran Torino leans forward a bit. He had that quirk for decades. There are no signs of such. Let me make an educated guess. Legion interrupts him. He was quirkless before he got that quirk, wasn't he? Gran Torino freezes. Lemillion begins to realize what Legion is suggesting. I thought so, Legion replies. His body had to deal with a single overpowered quirk, instead of a single overpowered quirk and his natural one, reawakened into a stronger form. He sighs painfully and turns his head towards Lemillion. I regret to inform you, Lemillion, but if you continue having that quirk, it will shorten your lifespan. I don't know how much, as I lack data to guess it. I don't know how many people owned it before Hickage, and I don't have anything to compare it to. 20 years, perhaps, maybe a bit more, since you will now know what to look for, and I'm sure you'll have proper healthcare instead of hiding in a forest almost until death like Hickage did. He shakes his head. If you add your power to it, I honestly don't think that you can have a non-quirkless successor. Gran Torino looks shocked. Lemillion makes a decision. I took my hero name to signify that I wish to save at least 1 million people during my lifetime. He replies confidently. If I have less years to live, I'll simply have to try harder to make it in time. Stain chuckles in the background. Something in his face looks proud. Lemillion doesn't know what to think about it. Gran Torino is as amazed as he is proud. Great. Legion beams. Lemillion is even more confused. Did he somehow forget that he is a captive of actual villains? How did things get so friendly? That's exactly the type of heroes we need if we want to clean up this country. Someone willing to risk their own lives for others, and considering saving people the reward in itself. It's probably a bad moment, but I'm going to have to ask you for an autograph. Lemillion didn't expect the villain that captured him to ask for his autograph. Then again, unless Legion was lying to them ever since the start of the talk, it was nothing like what he imagined. Less capture and more like surprise quirk counseling. Although he was looking to go back home, and he really hoped that there was nothing bad in store for them before that happens. Too bad. Ada suddenly speaks. That you didn't think the same thing about my brother. His gaze is hateful and locked on Stain. Gran Torino is about to intervene, but Stain is first. I didn't kill your brother. Hero Killer replies from his edge of the room. You are lying. Second, Ingenium naturally doesn't believe. In all honesty, neither does Lemillion. I tried to commit murder of the number 2 hero in front of the cameras. Stain replied calmly. What would I get from denying responsibility for one of my earlier kills? Shorter sentence. I'm getting a lifetime in Tartarus, no matter what, if I'm caught. Few seconds of silence. So I'll say it again. I didn't kill Ingenium. I didn't have any of my helpers to kill him. The League of Villains didn't kill him either. And if I saw him getting attacked during my hunts, I'd move in to save him. He was true hero, unlike most of the fakes I had to deal with in Hasu. In Olad, Legion intervenes. That if you want evidence or to be pointed towards the true killers of your brother, you should ask your homeroom teacher. He and Nedzu know more about the case than they are willing to admit publicly. But I'll leave the explanation to them. Tenya stares at him with a mix of hostility and questions. In the meantime, now that we've finished our emergency quirk counseling session, it's time to talk about your future. Lemillion hopes it's going to be something like, not horrifyingly bad. He had one terrifying reveal and he thinks that he had enough. I don't need hostages, Legion announces, and I can't reasonably hope to recruit any of you. Blackmail would also ruin my newly achieved image of a noble freedom fighter. So would murder or maiming, by the way. So, the League's plan for dealing with you is to keep you around for a day or two, and then warp you out next to UA or some other public place like that. The media say I'm dead and you were tortured or murdered by Mr. Edgy over there. Stain growls slightly. And I'm going to use you to prove that both claims were false. But to avoid worrying your mentors and perhaps families, I'm going to inform UA in advance of your status. Any questions? They didn't. It was a reasonable option. If Legion was going to act on it. Great. Legion smiled widely. Also, I had Gremlin modify your prisoner collars so you can now go to the toilet and even here, to the bar/living room, on your own. Nothing particularly secret there, and I don't want anyone to claim I mistreated you. This was certainly the weirdest kidnapping Lemillion ever heard about. Eraserhead is watching the news when the phone rings. He tears his eyes off the screen and sees that it is an unknown number. What now? He picks it up. I know you didn't expect to hear from me anymore. An unfamiliar voice speaks. But the news about my demise were slightly exaggerated, Eraserhead. Another unfamiliar voice says. Eraserhead's eyes widen in shock. Legion, it was true. He didn't expect to see or hear from the supervillain ever again. The wounds he saw on the TV were most certainly lethal. Yes, it's me. The supervillain replies. Sorry that it took me so long, but I was unconscious for the past 4 days, and nobody but me knew how to contact you. My mistake. Eraserhead doesn't know if he is happy or not about Legion's resurrection. Sure, the kid just dealt the greatest PR blow to the HPSC in history, but he was also a serious problem child to Aizawa. Worse than his actual students, somehow. What about your captives? The hero asks calmly. That takes priority over everything else. No worries, Legion replies. Gran Torino, Lemillion and the Second Coming of Ingenium are fine and are currently experiencing our hospitality in the super-secret base of the League. And before you ask if I mean something nefarious by this, I'll inform you that Lemillion is currently beating Decay to super death in a certain pre-quirk video game. Legion pauses, and Eraserhead begins to question his hearing. Holy shit, that kid is brutal. He is making my best friend hemorrhage his souls and humanity like crazy, and I love every second of it. Eraserhead has no idea what Legion means, but he is absolutely certain that Netsu isn't paying him enough to ask. We're going to warp them somewhere near UA in a day or two. Legion continues, since I'm already a pain in the government's ass, I can as well stick a needle in a painful place of all the newspapers and TV programs that claim that I'm dead, and so are 2 heroes and a hero school trainee. Tell Sir Night-Eye and All Might that their secret love child and probably the most common monster in All Might's nightmares will be back soon. And so will your student. Eraserhead wants a coffee. Or a cat. The headache is going to get worse. He can feel that clearly. Second Ingenium is moping in the corner a bit. Legion adds after a few seconds and a click of a tongue. Stain told him that he didn't kill his brother, without mentioning any secret stuff. I think he doesn't want to taint Tenya Ida's idealism with nasty things like this. I mentioned that if he wants to get an additional opinion about the killing, he should contact you. Don't tell him about who did, because the last thing we want is him going for revenge again. But please do mention that it wasn't Stain. Alright, I think he is actually kinda hurt by the accusations. Counseling my students for me. Eraserhead sighs. He doesn't mention counseling serial killers. It's really not his department. Can't you just make a false identity and get a job in the UA? You seem to have an awful lot of competence on the field. You don't know half of it. Legion laughs. Also, the friend in QLF likes Eclipse less and less. Villain adds after a second or two. Hopefully this will lead us all somewhere. Well, I need to salvage what's left of my best friend before he decays the controller in fury or something. See you later, Eraserhead. Eraserhead relayed Legion's words to Netsu, All Might and Sir Night-Eye. They wanted to believe him, but they couldn't. It was much more likely for it to be a copycat, or someone else from the League. The underground hero wasn't even surprised when Tenya, Mirio Tagata and an old pro hero appeared in the UA 3 days later. The police quickly rolled, and Detective Tsukachi asked them questions about their captivity. Then they were all released, and, perhaps unsurprisingly, Gran Torino and Mirio Tagata were rushed to the principal's office. Eraserhead didn't care. He had a talk scheduled with a student of his about trying to take revenge, and the death of his brother. We have to make a serious talk, Toshinori. Gran Torino glared at All Might, who visibly deflated even beyond his normal level of deflation. Right now. Before that, I have a quick question. Netsu intervenes before Torino starts. They met a few times during their joint war against the All for One, and he knows the risks. It's about Legion. Yes, Gran Torino replies. He is alive, and apparently made a full recovery somehow. Don't ask me how. He didn't confess stuff like that to me. He growls slightly. Throw all the personal analysis you made on him. Netsu, through the window. He is leading the League, not Stain. Hell, I saw him pretty much telling Stain to shut up and let him talk, and Stain shut up as ordered. Oh dear. Netsu is surprised. How did he manage to tame the hero killer? Don't ask me. Gran Torino replies with anger. When he woke up after the healing, he let us cruise around a part of the hideout, but we didn't see much and they were doing their best to make us not see anything potentially compromising. I can walk around quietly, so I did overhear a talk or two, but nothing I heard suggested that it was a setup or something. Stain is now Legion's favored blade. Nothing more. Daba and that Gekkaman actually referred to Legion as their boss in private, and that's not the fucking worst. Gran Torino sighs loudly. What's the worst then? Sir Night-Eye asks. The absolute fucking humiliation. Gran Torino exclaims. He knows about One for All, Mirai. Well, yeah. All Might tries to reply. He figured out the time limit thing before the USJ. Gran Torino slams his hand on the desk and All Might almost jumps through the window in terror. Not that Toshinori. Gran Torino is only getting more furious. He knows that your quirk is inheritable. He knows that you got it from Nana. And he knows that Mirio has it now. Almost all eyes in the room widen in shock. He figured that your quirk is transferable when he was 9 fucking years old. What's the point of our secrecy when a kid figures it all out? And now the entire League of Villains knows it too. Sir Night-Eye is practically white. All Might is, in the meantime, getting only more and more terrified. And that's still not the worst. Gran Torino continues his tirade. I've spent the majority of the last 2 days in a room changed into a shrine to former holders of the One for All, with Legion narrating to me all the things about this power that we missed over the years, and how he connected all the dots. That goddamn kid actually found the 2 holders before N. He did what? Sir Night-Eye's shock is turning into something. Gran Torino doesn't even know how to name the look on his face anymore. Degoro Banjo, the Black Whip hero. Gran Torino replies. And before him, Hikage Shinomori, some goddamn hermit living in the woods. And guess what? That's still not the worst thing I have to say. And then he describes the Legion's hypothesis about the presence of previous quirks in one for all holders causing a strain on the body, resulting in Hikage Shinomori's body practically breaking and the hero dying of old age a few years before All Might's current age. Gran Torino saw copies of Hikage Shinomori's medical data. Legion had them. Of course he had them. And Gran Torino is enough of an investigator to recognize falsehoods. Those files didn't appear false. Mirio, Sir Night-Eye says when Gran Torino ends. It's alright. Lemillion replies. I told Legion that if I'm going to live shorter, then I'll just have to work harder to make up for my hero name. I know you weren't aware of that. And I think I'm just going to visit Recovery Girl regularly to confirm it and be ready to hand the power to someone quirkless when the right time comes. Sir Night-Eye is proud of his ward. He practically emanates it. Great, Gran Torino says. I'm moved. But this doesn't change the fact that a 16-year-old kid is playing us around. Hell, he is playing half of Japan around. I noticed. Nenzu is bitter. You think he'll accept becoming a UA student under a false ID? All Might vomits blood at the suggestion. This is a bit excessive, Nenzu. Sir Night-Eye tries to intervene and be the moderate voice in this discussion. Look me in the eyes. The rat replies. And tell me that you wouldn't want him as an intern in your agency. Sir Night-Eye remains silent. See, it's not even about his powerful quirk or his quirk analysis and information gathering. None of this would have made Stain obey him, and his former sidekicks switch their allegiances together with him. Stain wouldn't accept anyone who wasn't entirely dedicated to a personal creed and lacked charisma to back it up. The more I get to see Legion's handiwork, the more I feel like I'm seeing significantly less malevolent All for One. Nenzu shared their hatred towards the man, but also their deep respect for All for One's strength and skills. Comparing someone to him not in the morals department was the rat's highest form of praise. More than that, Gran Torino replies, and eyes turn towards him. Listen, I spent a lot of time seeing All for One's goons. League is anything but similar to them. Fear, malevolence, threatening aura. Absolutely no. The Stain's sidekicks aren't fully integrated, but the old members, they act like a bunch of normal teenagers who like to hang out at the same place. You wouldn't be able to tell that Legion is any way distinct from the rest, unless it's time for the business. They play computer games or watch films together. Legion is cuddling with his girlfriend Vampire. They make jokes about what's happening in the country, sometimes even make fun of Legion himself. And then that green-haired menace decides that he is going to kill number 2 hero today, so everyone pulls out knives and villain outfits and goes to slay, burn, and maim at his orders, without thinking to question them. And he goes with them. So a natural leader, Nenzu replies, rather than an authoritarian boss. Gran Torino nods. Yes, the hero adds, forget about trying to drive a wedge between factions, provoke infighting, or try to make someone defect. I observed them for 2 days, and I can attest that none of this is going to work. If anything, they'll probably see your attempts as a form of a joke and laugh about it while eating together and watching something on TV. But it doesn't mean that the League is without weaknesses. Oh, Nenzu and Sir Night-Eye seem to be suddenly interested. The entire League hangs on Legion. Gran Torino says, we spent 4 days in the cell after Lemillion knocked him out. Because literally nobody knew what to do about us without Legion to tell them what's the next step of his grand strategy. Stain apparently hounded around his bed almost constantly, and the rest was mostly moping around their rooms. If the League is a solar system, then Legion is the sun that's keeping it all together and is a centerpiece of the entire structure. Take Legion out, and the League will vanish instantly. Isn't it the same with the QLF or the MLA? All Might tries to interject. Gran Torino seems like he is about to hit his old student again. No, if you take out Eclipse or Redistro, you will deal their organizations a massive blow. The old hero replies, but someone, even if much weaker, will take their place. Getten or Chronostasis will keep the organization afloat, albeit massively weakened. But if Midoriya Izuku is taken out, there is no one to do that. I don't think that they even have any thugs and other things under them. Literally the entire League is just a bunch of people with powerful quirks hanging out in the same building and wanting to change the society. Make Legion vanish, and the rest will scatter at once. You don't even have to worry about someone organizing a rescue attempt. Legion is not only the center of gravity holding them all together, but also their only strategist and tactician. Few more can be trusted to command a strike team, especially Dabai and Mindscrew. But Legion is the only one capable of making sure that several such parties don't mess up their coordination and everything happens on time. Sounds reasonable enough, Nenzu admits. Any other observations? They are good. Gran Torino replies bitterly. It's not even the fact that Stain swept the floor with me, although this does hurt my pride a lot. They are one of the most all-rounded villain groups I know of. Transport, Kurogiri, Infiltration, Vampire, Support, Gremlin, and if what I saw around the base is any indication, she is damn good at the job, although I didn't get to see her. Going forward, need to destroy or defeat someone in a loud and flashy way. Dab I and Decay, probably Mustard too with his gas quirk. Need to kill or incapacitate someone quietly and quickly. Spinner, Mind Screw or Stain. Zealot doesn't seem to speak with anyone, but I assume he plays some role too. Looks like a heavy hitter, that's for sure. And Legion's quirk seems to allow him to fix wounds in certain situations. Most crews I know of are one tough guy with skills and a handful of extras. Even the large groups like QLF or MLA tend to lack the versatility the League has. But that's another way of cracking it. Dismantle it by bits. Nedzu nods. I thought about it too. Get Kurogiri, Vampire or Gremlin, and the League's operations will be severely impacted. I'd prefer to start from the head, honestly. If I figured out the way Legion thinks, getting one of his friends out of the game will only make him angry, and he will probably find a way to take them back. And most likely a nasty one to everyone involved. Anything about the monsters. Can't help you there. Gran Torino replies. I didn't see any. There is either another base, or they are borrowing them from somewhere. I did overhear someone refer to them as Naumus, and apparently one of the parties attacking Hasu had something that one of the villains referred to as near high-end Naumu. Whatever fought All Might as the USJ was probably a high-end, going by the nomenclature. Unfortunately, while Legion was ready to go on for hours about All Might, Nana and other one for all holders, he wasn't even nearly as talkative on the issue of his pet beasts. Nedzu nods. This was to be expected. Financing. Listen, I saw a lot of villain bases, alright. Gran Torino is visibly tired by the questioning, but decides to push through. That one looked like an entire apartment block internally rebuilt to suit their needs. It had to cost a lot. I also don't hear about the League doing any sort of illegal business, save for their high-profile attacks. That means spending money, not earning. Kurogiri has a literal goddamn bar in their base with a really nice selection of alcohol. Decay and the kids are drowning in video games and other stuff. Legion has a whole room full of limited edition hero merch, some stuff looking like he robbed them from a museum. Gremlin is, honestly, I don't know what that weirdo does, but they have more support stuff on them and around them than I ever saw aside from my island. They are drowning in money, and I have absolutely no clue where they are getting it from. They didn't even feel like they considered running out of money an option, which is really odd. Most of them have an air, mannerisms, and habits of people that were used to not having money at all. I don't get how all of that works. Are you sure they didn't swipe Endeavor's credit card somewhere along the way? Or that All Might's old crush didn't leave them a fortune? She wasn't my crush. All Might has a suicidal streak today. Oh come on, Tashinori. Gran Torino has something sadistic in his smile. I still remember how you always asked me about Mischief's newest heist. You had no idea what was happening in the country during your stay in America, but you always had to ask about her. It was that skin-tight catsuit, wasn't it? Stop that. All Might can feel his authority in front of his successor dropping by the second. Nedzu sighs quietly. It isn't the time for his newest theory. Midoriya Izuku might have decided to be honest with his friends and co-workers, yes. He might have even admitted that he has a spy on the UA in front of Stain's party, yes. It wasn't exactly a surprise for them, considering the fact that he was active on the chat when Legion was unconscious. There was no point in secrecy anymore, but he still made it clear that the spy reports to him and him only. Knowing that he knows what Nedzu and his sidekicks talk about in his very own office was a bit too dangerous. Knowledge of a spy is one thing. Knowledge of what exactly he tells them is an entirely different problem. So, Izuku said that this is staying private, and the League agreed. UA Spy, Gran Torino had a talk with Nedzu, Night Eye and All Might about the League. UA Spy had some interesting observations. UA Spy, check it out. Midoriya Izuku does just that. Small Might, most of that is a confirmation of what I already know tbh. Small Might, it's not like I can clone myself. Small Might. There is no school for villainous masterminds out there, and I can't just find a kid like that and have me or my parents adopt him or SMTH. UA Spy, you sure your dad doesn't have a cloning quirk? Small Might, lol. Small Might, if he did, I would have at least 17 sisters. UA Spy, XD. Small Might, he absolutely adores her and he would certainly went for an option to have more of her. UA Spy, I can scarcely imagine the quirk thief to be a family man. Small Might, you wouldn't be able to imagine it at all if you saw him at work. Small Might, part of me still suspects it's brain damage from All Might's punch XD. Small Might, I'm actually going to visit them tonight. Small Might, officially I'm still recovering. Mom probably cried herself dry, but I really had to figure out the mess caused by my official absence. UA Spy, yeah, you might want to hear this part of the talk in the Nedzu's office then. Midoriya Izuku does just that. Small Might, oh my fucking god. Small Might, All Might had a fanboy crush on my mom. UA Spy, I knew you'd love it XD. Small Might, I'm going to tell that to my parents. Small Might, this is going to be hilarious. Small Might, you are the best spy in history, friend. UA Spy, doing my humble best, V. UA Spy, GTG, Vlad starting his homeroom. UA Spy, One more day of why can't you beat the one ugh. Small might, K. Good luck surviving that XD. I'm going too, Himiko announces when Izuku mentions that he is going to visit his parents. Legion is surprised. Then again, she stuck close to him ever since he woke up, so he barely managed to get her off him when he was going to sleep last night. Are you sure? Izuku decides to voice his surprise. I'm not letting you out of my sight for more than 20 minutes until I'm reasonably certain that you aren't going to do something stupid without me. Himiko replies promptly. The look on her face is one of confidence. You had Kurogiri warp out everyone but you and Stain before confronting the heroes, and then told him to evacuate everyone else from the city instead of sending help to you. You are a dummy, and I'm going to have to beat some sense into you. Brr, Himi. Izuku feels slightly insulted and decides to respond. I did that because then you would all be in the base, ready to get warped to my position. You were just in reserve. Izu. She leans towards him, confidence replaced with slight irritation. You do realize we could be in reserve but, like, next to you, instead of one warp away, in another city entirely. Boom. He tries to muster a response, but Himiko was yet to finish verbally beating her boyfriend. You had us warped out and had to confront a mini All Might on your own because you are a self-sacrificial and way too kind dummy who didn't want to lose anyone. So you ended up having literally everyone but yourself and Stain evacuated from the battlefield way too early. Himiko had several days to prepare for this lecture, and you almost died over it. So until I'm reasonably certain that if heroes find this place you won't have us all warped only to fight them all alone like a self-sacrificial dummy you are, I'm staying next to you. And Papagiri agrees with me, so you can forget about him warping me away from you unless I say yes. Got it. Yes, Himi. It was on this day that Midoriya Izuku understood that women were scary. How exactly he didn't notice it earlier despite seeing Midoriya and Ko smack a 2-centuries-old criminal mastermind and probably the most evil man in history of Japan with a newspaper was a mystery to everyone involved. Good. She gives him a bright smile and he relaxes a bit. Just a bit. His mom almost drowns him in tears right after they arrive. Her hugs are weapons grade too, of course. Izuku expected nothing less. Hisashi Midoriya is much more reserved. He is proud. That much is obvious. His son has cornered a number 2 hero and joined the exclusive group of people who received a United States of Smash and survived to tell the tale. He thought about getting them matching t-shirts over that, but decided to not aggravate his wife anymore. Not the right time for that. Eri, in the meantime, doesn't care. Her brother's finally back, and he brought his friend too. That's all that matters. She spends half an hour on his lap, talking with him about all the things that happened in the past few days. Eventually, she notices the signs that adult talk is about to happen, so she vanishes into her room. Besides, her favorite anime is about to start, and her brother's friend said that she would watch it with her. Son, Hisashi says officially once Eri and Himiko out of an earshot. I wish to tell you that I'm extremely proud of what you have achieved. You've humiliated Endeavor and dealt more damage to the Hero Commission's public image than I ever did. All for one laughs. A bit. The cheerfulness manages to reach his eyes too. He gets to feel what seems to be in Ko's elbow, driven into his side. He quickly shifts the subject. But it was still extremely reckless, and you should take better care of yourself. Hisashi knows when to fold. Besides, he knows his son enough to realize that this isn't going to change anything. He inherited his father's stubbornness. Your mother actually fainted when you emerged from the smoke, you know that. Sorry. Izuku does his best to look apologetic. Lemillion and Gran Torino were on a train that was going through the city when the attack started. I didn't expect them to show up. I had a plan, but it didn't survive contact with the enemy. That old fart has a tendency to show up when you least expect it. All for one replies. Been there, done that. I laughed when he did all that jumping around Stain, only for the hero killer to effortlessly grab his leg and slam him into the building. One of the most satisfying sights I experienced in my life. You have an eye for talented people, Izuku. That was the quality they both shared. What made Hisashi continuously surprised was that Izuku was almost as good as him on that field despite having 2 centuries less of experience. Did the longevity quirk made Hisashi stop accumulating certain skills? Or perhaps All for One, being the platform for other things to latch to, could also carry on skills or character traits, making Izuku inherit them too? So many fascinating questions. He probably won't find out until Izuku has his own children and one of them inherits the family quirk. Hisashi doesn't mention it, but part of him looks forward to having grandchildren. And for more reasons than just quirk-related curiosity. Only Izuku can reasonably provide them. His girlfriend stabbed one of the best underground heroes in the country during her first villainous outing, earning her good graces in Hisashi's book, and they do look happy together. Eri, in the meantime, is too pure and precious. Hisashi doesn't think there is anyone in Japan who could reasonably measure up to her and her father's expectations in that field. I learned from the best. Izuku replies sheepishly. 2.5-century-old heart warms up a bit. I know it's probably not the best moment to mention it. Inko decides to make an announcement. But me and you dad decided that Eri should meet some other people, so we've got her enrolled in a school as Shigaraki Eri. Izuku recognizes his dad's old surname, one that only Midoriya's know about. Does she? He asks. Not yet. His mom replies. We were planning to tell her 2 days ago, but then the QLF situation started and we've decided to wait for you. Inko pauses for a second or two before continuing. Hisashi falsified her school records, so she's officially transferring from another school. We've also decided that making her a child of someone as wealthy as your dad would just make her a potential outsider and a target for kidnapping, so she's officially from a much more modest family. But the school is in a secure place, with a lot of heroes around, so it should be alright. But she looks at her husband, who promptly takes the talk over. Well, first of all, we'll have to borrow Kurogiri to help with the logistics, Hisashi says. Not enough to seriously interfere with League's operations. And if you'll be launching another attack, we can figure out an explanation for Eri's absence in school. Second of all, her quirk didn't act out in a while, but we can't risk it. Taking her quirk is going too far, so I'd like to officially ask the League's engineer to provide some. Cute-looking accessory doubling as a quirk suppressor. He could barely mutter the word cute, even after so much time. Izuku finds that adorable. Gremlin will be overjoyed to help. Izuku replies, what else? Because there is something else, right? Yes, there is. Hisashi knows this might turn out to be a problem, but there is no other option. I'll be frank with you, son. If someone endangers Eri, I'm throwing our agreement through the window. I'll do my utmost to remain unrecognized. Yes, if it fails, I'll do my best to make our ties remain a secret, to not endanger you in the League of Villains. But if there will be no other option. He pauses and lets the unspoken words float around them. Fine. Izuku wants to give his sister a chance for more friends, but not at all costs. Promise me one thing, though. Kill only when she is in actual danger. And All Might being within 10 square miles of her last known position is not a sign that you can now murder him in front of cameras or something. Hisashi is slightly insulted. He isn't planning to fight All Might anymore. He actually enjoys seeing his nemesis beat up villains on the TV, because he knows that each fight gets him closer and closer to turning back into quirklessness. He might pop up in the hospital right before All Might dies of old age. He can see that scene in his mind. Yagi Toshinori thinking he can now pass away contently, having avenged his mentor and saved Japan, only to see All for One through a window or even in his room. Too late to change anything, but just in time to die in mental and emotional anguish. Seeing Endeavor broken under the Dabai's words gave All for One some fresh outlook on the concept of revenge. And he has time. All the time in the world. I see no problem with that. All for One replies, I have way too much fun seeing him squirm under you to fight him. First you bring him to his knees in the USJ. Then you kidnap his mentor and his chosen successor. What did you do to him in captivity? We played video games together. I also gave him emergency quirk counseling. Izuku replies, you told me about the earlier holders, so I mentioned the double quirk strain thing to Lemillion and listed 2 more past holders than All Might and Sir Night I managed to find, and mentioned how I figured this all out when I was 9 years old. Hisashi is confused. Izuku laughs. Gran Torino almost threw All Might and Sir Night Eye through the window of Nedzu's office for hiding things so well that a 9-year-old kid figured out more than they ever did. It was hilarious. All for One can imagine the scene. Against himself, he laughs. When he started teaching his son to be his successor, he sincerely hoped that he would embrace the true villainy like his father did. Izuku quickly proved him wrong. But if Hisashi was to be honest with himself, there was something wildly entertaining in watching Legion play All Might and his infuriating extras like that. He is also proud. Izuku is 16 years old. Lemillion, that Tintin-esque copy of Toshinori, was way more powerful when it comes to combat, and was personally trained by Night Eye. No slouch in the brains department, unlike All Might. Despite that, his son kidnapped him and that damn Gran Torino and then let them go, just to publicly shame them. Even without trying to steal one for all, it is an achievement. All for One is lucid enough to be aware that he himself would have struggled to achieve it. Then he notices something. Wait, how do you know what happened in Nedzu's office? Izuku's face is so perfectly innocent that it screams the word guilty. You didn't. Did you know that when Nedzu is particularly happy, he hides in his offices and sings? Izuku replies with the face of an angel. Russian shanties, oddly enough. I have a recording of him doing that after he heard of the petition to rename the Hero Commission into Villain Commission. Really painful to listen to. Hisashi Midoriya stares at his son, and for the first time in a while he doesn't know what to say. His son infiltrated the UA deeply enough to wiretap the rat's office. If All for One managed to do it, All Might would have never managed to corner him. How? He wants to know. He needs to know. Izuku gathers his thoughts for an answer. one of the league members with an appropriate quirk just joined the UA as a student. All I did was to help him train said quirk and clean up his police records. It was beautifully simple, if slightly time-consuming and reliant on having someone with appropriate quirk while being of an appropriate age, and necessary acting skills. But he was the man who could just give someone the right quirk. Why didn't he even think about doing it like that for years? He tried planting bot heroes as teachers. He tried to make villains infiltrate it and plant surveillance items, but he isn't going to admit it. But when he originally told Izuku that he supports his different outlook on villainy because the new times require a new perspective, he lied. He expected his son to fail at some point, or the heroes to push him into committing more and more necessary evils to survive, until he would finally come around to All for One's teachings. But instead Izuku has begun to achieve things that his father dreamt of, in ways that just never occurred to him as possible. His family would never know, but it was on that day that All for One had actually decided to retire. Until that very talk he considered this a temporary leave, something to stave his perpetual boredom before returning to his role as the Shadow Emperor, preferably with his son at his side. Rebuilding it all from the scratch would have been an interesting change of pace. But now he realized that he actually was too old for the job, and that he was right when he said that it was time for a new generation with a different outlook on things to take over. His son might not be an emperor of the underworld and king of all villains, controlling everything from the shadows. He, in fact, seems to be thriving on chaos, mischief, and public stunts. But a villain is a villain. That's good enough for All for One. He couldn't tolerate his son becoming a hero, but if he wants to save people as a villain, then Hisashi is reasonably alright with it. Oh, and here comes the funniest thing I ever heard. Izuku is unaware of his father's internal revolution. All Might, wait for it, had a crush on Mom when she was Mischief. Come again. Hisashi thinks that he misheard. His wife just stares at her son in shock. Gran Torino teased him over it, Izuku says with a wry smile. Apparently when he was in the US, he was super focused on his work there and wasn't really up to date with events in Japan. But he always asked Gran about Mischief's newest heist. Gran talked about it in one of the recordings. Izuku laughs, said it was all about that skin-tight catsuit. The family joins the laughter. Somewhere in Japan, a hero suddenly vomits blood. Himiko Toga agrees with the Midoriyas about the absolute preciousness of Eri. She can scarcely believe that the girl that went through things as horrible as she did can still smile so brightly and innocently. It's as if she wanted to make the world a better place, one uplifted heart at a time, to make up for what happened to her. Equals, she is almost too bright for a hardened villain like Himiko. She isn't a rank villain after the commission figured out that she can transform into people and act well enough to fool a veteran hero like Endeavor. Despite that, she is now smiling brightly while a little girl prances around her, telling her in secret that she wants to be a hero when she grows up to save people like her brother saved her, showing her all the things about her room, letting her pet her dog. Himiko begins to suspect that Midoriya's keep Eri blissfully unaware of their villainous activities, because then she would ask them to stop being villains and they would have absolutely no other option than to agree. That was some nuclear weapons-grade adorableness. Is being cute a quirk? That would explain a lot. Eventually they rejoin the rest of the Midoriya family and spend a very nice evening together. Inko is already treating Himiko as pretty much a part of the family. The young villainess has bad memories associated with the term family, but she thinks that it's time to change that. Izuku and Hisashi's joint attempts to hide embarrassing photos from the house turn out to be for naught. Inko is a master thief, close to the level of Mr. Compress. They didn't even notice the missing books. Seeing Izuku blush furiously when his own mother outmaneuvered him made Himiko laugh on the inside. Growing with an entire family composed mostly of scheming supervillains had to be an interesting experience. She is supposed to spend the night in the guest room again. But when Izuku's parents vanish from the site, she ends up in his room. They cuddle together, talking about a lot of things. She is still shaken from seeing him on the edge of death. Twice, pretty much. The second time was when she returned with the collars from May to see him fixed, but unconscious on the couch. For a second she thought that he was dead. Seeing him, touching him, hearing his voice. She said a lot of smart things to him when she was explaining why she was following him like that. But at least partially it was because she needed a constant reminder that he was still there. Izuku was all about keeping up an image and was adorable in his drive to be the best villain mastermind that he can be. But he was just as shaken by his brush with death as she was. When they were alone, he stopped acting. They talked about a lot of things. She never made it to the guest room that night. She sneaked there in the morning. His parents didn't say a thing, but she saw enough wry smiles that morning to know that they knew. Satan 2, I wish to announce that I survived. Dr. Evil, good. Overhaul's quirk. Satan 2, yes, just in time. Satan 2, I'm starting to understand how Sensei lost to All Might if even a kid like Lemillion can pack this much of a punch. Dr. Evil, he didn't lose. Satan 2, Sensei died. All Might survived with grisly wounds. All things considered, it was an almost Pyrrhic victory of All Might. But a victory nonetheless. Dr. Evil, I dare to disagree, but whatever suits your ideology. Satan 2, you are unusually negative today, good doctor. Dr. Evil, you had one for all holder captive, and you let him out. Dr. Evil, disgrace. Satan 2, yes, I did let him out. Satan 2, because, Satan 2 to 1. I had no guarantee that I could overpower him and steal his quirk. Satan 2, Sensei tried that with N alone twice, and it didn't work. Do you think I'm his equal? Satan 2 to 2. If I killed him, All Might and Night I would have made destroying me their life's work, and League isn't ready for that. They take me for a friendly type of villain that can be an asset to UA. Satan 2 to 3. By letting him out I make them think I'm trustworthy, and I'll be in a position to backstab them well enough when I'm actually ready for it. Satan 2. Do you have a hidden army of Namas capable of overpowering All Might when he actually finds out headquarters? If not, then please stop being passive-aggressive and cooperate. Satan 2. How are the Namas doing BTW? Dr. Evil finished their maintenance 3 days ago. We didn't lose even a single one, and we've gained a lot of valuable combat data for their further fine-tuning. Satan 2. See, we're playing a long game. Small Might, alright, so I'd like to announce that I've finished cleaning stuff up from my temporary holidays. Small Might, I mean people normally sleep longer and do not work when they have holidays, so me being unconscious kind of fits the bill. Insomniac, my hatred towards you is too powerful to be contained in my temporal form and now stalks the base like a small hate Jiri. Small Might, I'm confused. Insomniac, good. Confusion makes you suffer, nerd. Handyman, stop it. Handyman, when are you coming back? I need my player too. Insomniac, you just want to play with someone who isn't going to invade your world every 10 minutes to beat your ass and steal your hard-earned souls. Handyman, I'm going to decay your vocal cords for that. Insomniac, you can silence me but you can't silence the truth lol. Insomniac, that hero kid was fucking brutal. Insomniac, he beat you with a broken sword and then danced above your corpse lol. Handyman, stop it damn you. Small Might, Insomniac, please stop bullying my adopted older brother. Small Might, also soon. Small Might, Vampire Princess and my mom are having some sort of girl talk. Small Might, Papajiri, will you help me hide if it's something scary? Cat Provider, I will not. Cat Provider, also I'm Kurajiri, not Papajiri. Small Might, okay Unklajiri. Cat Provider, ugh. Purge the fakes, a question. Purge the fakes. What do you normally do between murdering high-profile heroes? Purge the fakes. Fakes out there and I'm here, wasting time. Small Might. Well, normally we wait for a perfect occasion to strike against someone. Gathering intel, chilling down in the base and so on. But I agree that this time it should be different. Small Might. We are a bit too high-profile ourselves now, and I need to make the world understand a bit more than we're back in the game properly. Small Might. Fucking QLF stealing the spotlight. Handyman, Eclipse is a kill stealer and we should destroy her for it. Small Might, working on it. Small Might, I might know about a creature rejection clan hideout in Tokyo, which might or might not be sometimes visited by local heroes. Small Might, 2 of them, in fact, doesn't feel like they are undercover. Small Might, what's your opinion on quirkest heroes secretly joining villainous hate groups? Purge the fakes, sentence is death. Small Might, Uncle Stain lesser than 3. Sneaky Gecko, can I join? It's personal. Deus Vult, same. Handyman, he speaks. Fuck school, he speaks. UA Spy, he speaks. Small Might, oh shit, he speaks. Small Might, why haven't you say anything earlier? Deus Vult, you had nothing interesting to talk about. Insomniac, damn, call the ambulance because that's a 3rd-degree burn. Small Might, lol. Small Might, yeah, so once Vampire Princess stops plotting my downfall with my mom, we're warping back to the base and quickly plan the attack on the hideout. Small Might, does that satisfy you, my second uncle? Purge the fakes, yes. Purge the fakes. Who is the first one? Small Might, Kurajiri. Small Might, honestly you are all my extended adopted family. Insomniac, oh. Small Might, save for you. Insomniac, fuck school, ouch. Small Might, oh wait, you're kinda my brother-in-law. Insomniac, for the 100th time stop trying to set me up with Tenko, I don't swing that way. Insomniac, also I have human ears. Small Might, what? Handyman, don't. Handyman, you. Handyman, fucking. Insomniac, when he plays single-player RPGs with an option for that he always romances cat or wolf or fox girls. Handyman, dare. Handyman, you are dead. Small Might, oh shit, that's a new one. Fuck school. Small Might, are you going to settle down and be a responsible adult human being when I find you a girl like that? Small Might, I mean there have to be someone like that among the villains in Japan. Handyman, I hate you all. Creature Rejection Clan was a hate group that started growing in numbers relatively recently, although it existed for a long time. It saw the mutation quirks as intrinsically evil and dangerous and impure yada yada yada. In Izuku's opinion, you could copy-paste a manifesto of any past hate group and just exchange whatever they hated with complex mutation quirks, and it would summarize CRC up pretty well. A bit of a cruel irony, but the CRC was right from a biological point of view, at least once purity took over. Earlier, CRC hated everyone diverging from pure human form, but post-purity they only had an issue with complex mutations. So people like Maruko, Gang Orca, Spinner, or that frog girl from the USJ Attack, those mutations worked significantly differently than normal quirks, typically offering a wider array of abilities. They were also absolutely dominant in terms of genetics. Speaking about it in a more simple terms, Maruko's children would be rabbit people just like her, and so her grandchildren, and grand-grandchildren, regardless of who their other parents were. Complex mutant quirks typically overrode other quirks entirely when it came to inheritance. As a result, if Maruko and her descendants were allowed to exist, then in a few centuries there was going to be a significant group of rabbit people living in Japan, potentially making standard humans into merely one of subspecies of generalized mankind. So yes, from the biological point of view, the existence of such quirks was a danger to humanity as it was understood presently. Unfortunately for the CRC, Midoriya Izuku, League of Villains, and most normal people in Japan didn't consider having rabbit, frog, orca, or lizard people in the society as a problem, at least until they joined the mirror opposite of the CRC, the Inhuman Supremacy Party, because, honestly, then they became assholes just like those that discriminated against them. Stain wanted to charge in and simply slaughter everyone inside, but Izuku advised caution. Izuku turned out to be right. The small hideout of the creature rejection clan was not as small as they originally suspected. Japan as a whole was still blissfully unaware of the exact workings of Vampire's quirk. It was a child's play for the Mind Screw and Himiko to tag a CRC member, mug him in an alleyway, and, when he was unconscious, for Himiko to drink some of his blood. Wearing him as a disguise, she sneaked into the hideout and then returned with a report. They expected 20-30 Costa Rican members and 2 turncoat heroes. They got about 150 Costa Rican members, no less than 6 turncoat heroes, and some torture dungeon/experimentation lab, plus Purge, one of the Purity's main lieutenants. Stain's interest in randomly charging and murdering people has cooled down after it, replaced with an interest in creating a plan on how to charge and murder people while being smart about it. Okay, so a quick question before we start. Izuku announced right before they started strategizing. Everyone was gathered around the 3D model of the building printed by Gremlin and used as a map. Is there anyone here who has yet to kill someone? Silence. Good. They are prepared. Why do you ask? Mindscrew gets curious. Because I have a very short patience when it comes to hate groups, Izuku replies. Plus we did so many semi-bloodless raids that I really think we should make it bloody for once, just to show the world that we are villains, not vigilantes. We might be following a set of rules, but we should still be feared. He made a decision after the night when Himiko mysteriously forgot where she was supposed to sleep. He wanted to be a villain, a great villain. He respected vigilantes. The good ones were even cooler than the underground heroes. And he wasn't going to attack random people, but unredeemable villains. Yeah, that was a different situation altogether. So, we go in and kill something like 150 people. Mustard asks for clarification. He doesn't seem to believe in what he heard. Yes, Izuku replies calmly. Stares intensify. Well, unless they manage to escape. You are free to spare those that flee. Stain laughs menacingly. The CRC was a group with religious trappings. Izuku, personally, had no idea why that happened. The surface level of their base had a large hall resembling a church. Many pews, candles, altar for some crazed preacher to mumble about how all Inhumans were evil. They had gatherings once or twice a day. Zealot appeared to be religious, some variant of Christian, most likely, and had an issue with CRC. Izuku asked him what religion the CRC stems from, to which the man replied that he thinks that CRC themselves don't know the answer to that question, which was most likely a correct answer. Hate groups like them weren't really into studying their actual history. Himiko stalked the building earlier, getting the coordinate readings for various locations throughout the complex for Kurogiri to easily warp to and from. She noted down the approximate combat strength of the villains. The turncoat heroes and 1 or 2 heavy hitters of the CRC tended to spend time on the second level of the building, where Purge had his office. There was an underground section, divided between the barracks and the prison. The former was garrisoned by something like 20 cultists on the level of proficient thuggery, armed with a variety of weapons, with all CRC members typically wearing various forms of body-covering robes. Sneaking in was a child's play once you had someone spend 2 or 3 days in. Besides, Legion, Mustard, and Decay only had to get to the main hall during one of those Christian mass parodies that CRC indulged in so often. So, ready to finally unleash your ulti, Legion asks his best friend. He can't see it, but he knows that Tenko is grinning maniacally under his robe. and a rather minimalistic gas mask, identical to the ones that Mustard and Legion carry. Tenko is like that. Hell yeah, player 2. He finally gets an answer. The three of them are standing right behind the sea of pews, filled to the brim with people who are very busy venerating their own acts of petty hatred against the mutant quirk holders. Legion to all. Izuku switches to another channel. Phase 1 in 20 seconds. The CRC is going down hard. Chances that Phase 2 will be needed are minimal. 19 seconds later, Decay makes a step forward. Legion kneels and touches the floor. His quirk stretches to its limit. The pews and the altar are suddenly surrounded by thick stone walls. Decay is locked inside with close to 100 clan members. Or, to be exact, they are locked there with him. Mustard spreads his poisonous gas throughout the ground floor of the facility. It's going to take him a minute or two to get it thick enough to incapacitate people, but he has Legion to defend him. There are some stragglers here and there, but nobody capable of facing an SS rank villain. Decay pushes his quirk to the limit. The CRC members are still surprised by the appearance of the wall when he touches two nearest clanners with 5 fingers each. They scream as his quirk decays them into dust. More scream when the effect spreads into the nearest cultists. And then more of them. Infectious Decay, his most powerful super move, kills 97 people within the next 3 minutes. Nobody gets close enough to attack him. Mustard's gas kills a further 7, while Legion scores merely 3 kills. The traitor heroes are chatting happily together with 2 tougher-looking CRC regulars a level above. One of them is telling the others an amusing story of how he left a mutant quirk girl to die in a house fire, and how hilarious the shock and fear on her face when she realized that he isn't going to save her. They hear screams coming from downstairs. They grab their weapons and support items. That's when Kurogiri warps and Stain. He materializes in the middle of them, his katana drawn. They recognize him, of course. Their movements pause. One of them is braver than most. Stain, you are surrounded. Hero Killer laughs. All I'm surrounded by is fear. He replies. His maniacal smile makes 2 nearest heroes take a step back in terror. And dead fakes. The last of his enemies has his throat sliced open 4 minutes and 23 seconds later. Hero Killer suffers only a single shallow wound. When the alarm rings, Himiko moves instantly. The nearest torturer gets stabbed before he can react. When the remaining ones gather in front of her, Kurogiri warps Spinner behind their back. He doesn't warp out. The 3 of them slaughter 7 people in the next minute. When that's done, they open the cages up and have Kurogiri warp the captives out of the building. Tell me, why exactly did I get roped into that? Mindscrew comments, before opening fire again. One of the clan thugs that failed to reach safety in time falls to the ground bleeding from several gunshots. I should be smarter than this. Gremlin and Dabai are hiding behind a set of overturned tables in the local barracks. The resistance is bigger than Legion estimated. It appears that one of the heavy hitters was visiting the barracks when the attack started. The rest of the hall is a mess. Part of it is burning. Part of it is shred by gunfire. Gremlin armed Mindscrew with a lot of customized ammunition, but this time he mostly uses normal bullets. Painfully bland, but hey, as long as it works. Hey, I'm here because I want to make even better babies. Gremlin replies with a maniacal grin and throws a firebomb behind what appears to be a bar. Judging from screams and a burning figure emerging from behind said bar, her throw was an accurate one. The alcohol burns well, and I love field testing them, so I think it's awesome. Dabai stays silent and keeps throwing blue fireballs at the CRC's giant that's approaching them, hidden behind 2 metal tower shields. He is followed by several thugs that survived the initial assault. His fire's scorching hot, but whatever the shield is made of, it held strong against it. Watch this, Dabai. Mindscrew decides that it's time for a change in tactic. Hey, big guy, how much did the mutants pay your mother for a night? Is that still an option? Asking for a friend. What did you? The shield bearer freezes. Thugs behind him are confused. Mindscrew lets out a chuckle. Stop hiding behind your shields. The rain of gunfire, fireballs and grenades cuts down the shield bearer and the thugs in a few seconds. Purge hears the alarm and screams of his men, so he runs out of his office. He is a particularly normal-looking human being. He prides himself on being able to keep a low profile and stay under the radar. Useful feats for a rank villain responsible for dozens of public crimes, especially by someone whose quirk allows him to manipulate masses of people. How many spontaneous lynching did he organize until now? He trained his quirk enough for it to have several more interesting applications. He sees one of the attackers right outside of his office. He is about to blast him with his quirk when he recognizes the face. Nakano. Purge forgets where he is and what is happening around him. Nakano is here. The lost lamb smiles apologetically and walks towards him. Purity was looking for you everywhere. Why are you? He has only a second to notice Zealot activating his quirk. His figure erupts, almost doubling in size. It's no size alteration quirk. This is an all-round enhancement of strength, power, and speed with a massive transformation component. Having a powerful mental manipulation quirk is of no use to you when you just allowed a strength type to approach you. Before Purge can do anything, his arms are torn off and then his head is pulverized by a punch that would have made All Might proud. Why did you call for the meeting, Detective? Nezu is reasonably intrigued. Detective Tsukachi rarely does things like that, and has never done that without a reason. The group has expanded slightly. There is Eraserhead, visibly tired, All Might in his skeletal form, Sir Nightai and Lemillion. Finally, Nezu himself. The composition of the group indicates a subject connected to the League, but we have a new development about League of Villains. Detective replies. The attention of the people present focuses on. 4 hours ago someone launched a raid on a previously unknown creature rejection clan's hideout in Tokyo. 9 captives were liberated and moved to a hospital specializing in mutant healthcare. Their description of their liberators matches that of Spinner, Vampire, and Kurogiri. We assume that the rest of the League was also present. Attacking CRC, Sir Nightai is intrigued. He misses a certain part of the detective's mood, one that tells Nezu that it's not the whole reason for his presence. An unexpected change in their modus operandi. I'm not exactly surprised. All Might adds, the League appears to see themselves as something akin to vigilantes, just ones ready to bring the war to the heroes if they aren't up to the standard. Besides, Legion has personal reasons to dislike the quirkless groups. Midoriya Izuku being the Legion is public knowledge at this point. Detective knows, but doesn't know that Nezu and the rest knew before him. Detective, is there something you wish to say? Nezu decides to skip directly to this part. The attack was brutal, Tsukachi says after a short silence. I believe that Legion decided to make a statement to remind the world that they are a league of villains, not vigilantes. That or he had to remind Stain that their methods align. He still didn't fully buy the revelation that Legion was the League's head, rather than Stain. Did someone die? Eraserhead asks. Nezu thinks that he knows that the answer will be positive, though he also suspects that the number will be higher than the teacher thinks. We are still counting corpses, Detective finally says. Nezu hears a short gasp somewhere in the room. The League annihilated one of the largest CRC bases we've ever heard about. We currently estimate that they killed anywhere between 100 and 200 CRC members. Even in the age when QLF levels down cities, those numbers are shocking. The League doesn't have 1,000 soldiers behind them. The people in the room stare in silence. We believe that Purge, and a rank villain in Purity's second in command, is among the casualties, but will require DNA identification for that. Detective continues. Someone tore his arms off and then inflicted a blunt force trauma onto his head with enough strength to make everything above his abdomen effectively vanish. We've found bodies of 6 heroes and 2 B-rank criminals on the same floor of the facility, their wounds indicating that Stain slew them. Officially, we're yet to explain why the heroes were there, but at least 2 of them were suspected of committing hate crimes at some point in their past. It's unofficial, but I believe that they were CRC members too. Another B-rank villain and 17 E and F-rank villains were found dead in what we presume to be barracks. Cause of death was either burns, gunfire, or grenades, so we suspect that Dabai, Mindscrew, and probably Gremlin fought there. The most troubling are events in the main hall of the facility. Detective pauses. He knows that he is technically spreading confidential information, but he is way past that level. They are heroes going after the League. If anyone should know that, it's them. We suspect that the League attacked the hideout during one of the CRC gatherings. Detective continues. Mustard filled the main hall with gas, and Legion disassembled a few clanners that tried to interrupt that. But the most casualties were caused by Decay. When the attack happened, Legion trapped the majority of the gathered rank-and-file cultists with Decay by using his quirk. The nature of Decay's quirk makes it hard to count, but we estimate that he killed between 70 and 150 cultists. With a 5-finger point quirk, Sir Nightai is appalled. Eraserhead is merely shocked. Quirks like that are useful in one-on-one combat mostly. Even if they were utterly incompetent in fighting, he shouldn't be able. We know. Detective interrupts him and sighs. If we judge the length of attack from how long the neighbors heard the commotion, the raid lasted for less than 5 minutes. More gasps and shocked stares. Unless Decay is impossibly fast and proficient in combat, we have to assume that his quirk is capable of some form of area of effect attack. That or it's a chained attack. Legion either imprisoned the cultists to stop them from fleeing or because the Decay's quirk can spread from person to person and object to object when they are close enough. Oh dear, Nezu says after a few seconds of silence. I think for the first time in his career, Legion actually managed to pull through with the plan without it getting derailed by something. He promised to not kill people left and right, and he wants to stick to it. But he can't help but feel faintly proud. CRC had a rather negative approach to quirk-carrying animals developing sapience. After all, the slightly sadistic rat can't really feel bad for the victims of this massacre. Is that what caught your attention in all that? Sir Nightai tries not to be sarcastic. To quote Aizawa, problem child just committed mass murder. Technicalities. Nedzu replies calmly. They are villains, Mirai. What did you expect? Even many heroes would have gone on a rampage in those circumstances. And we all know that the public won't care about two villain groups fighting each other, especially not when Eclipse is destroying a town every day. CRC is a major villain organization led by a supervillain with thousands of victims under its belt. The official approach to those is take them alive if you think it's convenient. You think that Maruko and Gang Orca considered taking their enemies alive during their battle against QLF. Netsu, All Might is pissed off. Eraserhead decides to intervene. Okay, stop that. The underground hero achieves his goal of stopping the brewing argument, at the cost of becoming an object of attention. You were about to argue whether a villain group can legally murder another villain group. This is the height of irrationality. Could you please focus on something actually productive, like trying to figure out why Legion did that? And how did he do that? Plus, what's that entail for the future? Fair point, Aizawa. All Might nods. I think we can assume that Legion just proved to us what sort of tactical advantage a warp quirk can give you on a battlefield, just as Eclipse showed us on the strategic level. From what I heard from Tsukachi, I assume that the League attacked several points in the facility simultaneously, or almost simultaneously. Take the Stains fight. He certainly didn't get there by fighting his way from the entrance. So, if I'm correct, League used their shapeshifter to reconnoiter, and then had Kirigiri teleport their members in exactly where they should be. Add Legion's ability to dissect quirks, and suddenly every notable defender finds himself facing their worst nightmare. Like Purge, who was apparently destroyed by someone strength-oriented, without being given time to charge his mental quirk up. And if any assault party found itself overwhelmed, Legion would simply warp in reinforcements from other groups. From a tactical point of view, this raid was a masterpiece. Eraserhead finds himself reminded that while All Might is often caught unaware of various things, he does have loads of combat experience. Night Eye was more of an investigator and a strategist for him. The number one hero needed no one to act as his tactician. I can agree with that analysis. Nedzu nods. Legion proves to us over and over again that he knows how to properly apply the tools that he has to maximum effect. Thankfully, most of the truly valuable places, like the UA, are armed in warp coordinate scramblers. USJ was a surprise, but now we have enough readings on Eclipse and Kirigiri quirks to stop them from simply walking into my office. That covers how. Time for why. Intimidation. Sir Night Eye asks. They struck some high-profile targets, but they started to gather a reputation of people who avoid collateral damages. Attacking in a different way might discourage further targets from, for example, trying to hide behind hostages. After slaying more than 100 people in 5 minutes, they will be much more inclined to believe he would simply kill the hostages and then them. I don't think it's that. Lemillion, silent since the beginning, suddenly speaks. And I think you still misunderstand who Legion is. What do you mean? Sir is startled. Netsu is interested. All Might vomits blood. Eraserhead wants to go home. You see him as a villain who retains at least some morals and weird obsession for the true heroes, and think that his current operation was somehow unlike him. Lemillion replies, I spent only 2 days with him, but I think that I managed to get a glimpse on who he truly is. In a way, he and I are strikingly similar. What? Sir is startled even more. The rest are busy listening. Let me explain. Lemillion takes a deep breath. I dreamt of heroics for years, a long time before I actually went to the UA. I'm not going to brag, but it was always my dream to save others, to become the greatest hero of them all. Not for fame, but simply because it meant that I saved a lot of people and thus made the world a better place. I mean, even my hero name is a statement, a type of an oath that I want to save 1 million people before retirement. And I can't help but notice how similar Legion seemed to have been at some point, and how similar in a twisted way he still is. He pauses for a second, obviously struggling with finding correct words for what he is trying to describe. I'm trying to become a professional, official hero. Lemillion continues finally. This means getting shackled by law and regulations, but also becoming a symbol of what people should strive for. We all know how many UA students dream of being like All Might. After all, underground heroes, like Eraserhead, are those who decided to avoid the popularity so that they can do sometimes questionable things without tainting the image of heroics, but while still being able to work officially and alongside police. I know that I'm probably going to mess up my graduation chances, but I'm going to risk saying that the difference between the vigilante and underground hero is that the latter has a badge, but the logic behind their operations is similar. Eraserhead wasn't going to comment on that, but in the most butchered and simplified way, Lemillion was correct. Of course, this supposedly minor difference still meant a lot. Vigilantes tended to know less about the law, often accidentally messed up police or hero investigations with their operations, and in general tended to be enthusiastic amateurs. The professional vigilantes, like the ones from the Knuckledusters Vigilante Alliance, had many former heroes and former hero trainees in their midst, and were generally speaking better organized. They also had many communication channels with underground heroes, which tended to lessen the risk of Vigilante accidentally taking out a hero informant and so on. At least in methodology there were many similarities, something that made Eraserhead occasionally irritated. Vigilantes shouldn't be needed to keep people safe. For now, they were. And then, Legion. Lemillion finally reaches the main subject. He has the same drive to make people's lives better. His character came from the same mold as mine and All Might's. But something, perhaps meeting overhaul, made him decide that even vigilantism is too limiting. So he unshackled himself entirely. Few seconds of pause. He kills people that he perceives as evil. If he did that as a hero or vigilante, he would stain those terms with blood. So instead he embraces the term villain with pride. After all, it's just villains killing other villains, at least to the general public. Eraserhead had to agree that this was an unusual take, but the more he thought about it, the more it made sense considering the Legion's activities. His mind goes back to the Vigilante Alliance trying to kill Stain due to his past as Stentol and potential implications of Hero Killer being a former vigilante. Legion literally called his organization the League of Villains. Was there a better way to keep people thinking that you are a villain? And was there a better way of reminding the public of it after taking down some corrupt heroes than a mass murder? I'm not sure if he is aware of that logic himself, really. Lemillion continues, surprising Eraserhead. He appears to be oddly proud of being a supervillain, in a similar way in which I would be proud from getting to the top 10 hero ranking. In a way, he feels like one of the Scions of Stain. He doesn't peddle drugs, because for him that's pointless villainy. He is a villain that wants to change the society through an illegal use of quirks. And the change he strives for seems to be cleaning the country up. It makes even more sense if you consider him knowing about All Might's quirk weakening. Since he knows what would happen if All Might vanished tomorrow, he began to dismantle the groups that could tear the country into pieces in his absence. The lecture is long enough that they somewhat get used to it. It takes them close to 10 seconds to figure out that Lemillion wasn't going to add anything more. It makes perfect sense. Nedzu is the first one to speak. He limited the collateral damage when it came to attacks on Thunderbolt and Endeavor, because said damage in their cases would be either hero students or civilians. But in the CRC raid the only bystanders were cultists, and thus villains, so he didn't bother with limiting the lethality of his attack. Sir Night-Eye nods. Honestly, at this point Eraserhead wouldn't be surprised if he was secretly Mirio's father. The paternal pride from accomplishments and growth is all there. And this was a very on-point analysis. Detective nods too. He doesn't seem to be agreeing to anything in particular, merely deep in thoughts over Lemillion's lecture. He is a detective after all. He is probably thinking how to apply the resulting knowledge to the investigation. So, in short, Legion is Nedzu, Stain and All Might's secret love child. Eraserhead decides to stir the pot a bit. The combination of laughter, shock and betrayal in the eyes in front of him are a good enough reward. That's just great. And really makes me wonder what he is going to do in the hypothetical scenario where he does clean the country up. It's a question in a similar vein to what will Stain do if he ever runs out of fake heroes to kill. Aizawa suddenly remembered Stain's words about him knowing that eventually he would be caught, and looking forward to it for as long as a true hero would be the one to stop him. Stain clearly treated himself as a villain to be caught and detained once he succeeded in changing the world. Why did he and Legion were so similar despite having no prior ties? So, how are we going to proceed? Sir Nine-Eye asks Nedzu, deciding to completely ignore Eraserhead for his blasphemies. Continue investigating Legion in hopes of finding a way to detain him. Nedzu replies, as much as his actions thus far benefited the society, he is still a murderer, and letting him act as judge, jury, and executioner is a long-term detriment to the rule of law. Only the presence of Mirio and Detective Tsukachi in the room stops Sir Night-Eye, All Might, and probably Eraserhead from calling Nedzu out on that. The rat either learned his lesson or was sarcastic. You could never tell. Eraserhead still thinks that it's hypocritical. Not what Nedzu said, but what Legion was doing. HPSC and Nedzu did the exact same thing as he did. Killed people for their own goals. And he was clearly calling them out on that. The only point where he was better than them was the fact that he at least had the decency of calling himself villain. If anything, he was probably more pissed off about Nedzu doing it despite being heroes than about them murdering people. Izuku Midoriya clearly liked heroes, or, to be exact, his over-idealized image of the profession, a tad too much, enough to kill people to maintain it, just like Stain. Besides, he was still a kid. Even if a smart one, it still means a certain degree of immaturity. He, and most of the League, were of the same age as Ajiro Kirishima, the kid that in Eraserhead's opinion was absolutely fixated on the concept of manliness and was ready to call about everything he respected as manly, even if it was a girl. Kids were illogical and prone to liking things or concepts too much, like a lot of adults, frankly, but they were typically worse at that. Legion, unfortunately, took that up to 11 and had a means to follow up on it together with resolve to kill people. He probably enjoyed killing Overhaul a bit too much. And in the so-called meantime, Nezu continues, I have a certain theory to share with you, one that concerns the father of our favorite villain. Father, All Might is surprised. Why is it important? Although part of him is curious who it was that actually managed to catch Mischief. She had quite a fanbase a while ago, although he still refuses to count himself as a part of it. Favorite villain. Sir Night feels particularly outraged at the words. He would never favor a villain. Although he does feel sad that Legion chose that route to follow. He would make an outstanding hero. Yes, Nezu replies, ignoring the outrage. You see, the father of our dear Midoriya Izuku is an enigma. I had someone ask the past neighbors of the family, and they are all quite adamant that he was a rather enigmatic figure. In fact, oddly enough, no one seems to have ever seen him, save for the parents of Bakugo Katsuki. To continue with yet another odd point of the story, they were invited several times for a dinner, which, interestingly enough, is the only case of someone actually seeing Hisashi Midoriya. No other visitor saw him. No one saw him out doing groceries. The official version is that he worked overseas and was rarely home. But to speak in the shortest version, things do not add up. You think it was a setup. Sir Night caught the first. That whoever was introduced to Bakugo actually wasn't Hisashi Midoriya, but either someone else or Hisashi himself, but under some form-altering quirk or heavy makeup. Precisely, Nezu replies with enthusiasm. This entire investigation is just endlessly interesting. It's probably understandable considering that Legion's mother was Mischief. Sorry for not mentioning it earlier, Tsukachi. Detective gives the rat a death glare. But someone went to truly extraordinary lengths to cover everything up. Each time I think I got something, I discover that I found only another layer of misdirection. I haven't had as much fun in years. Eraserhead reminds himself that the rat is a special type of evil and gets over that announcement. To be honest with you, despite wasting a lot of money and investigating Hisashi Midoriya for weeks, I haven't found anything. Nezu smiles brightly, and that alone is why I was trying even harder. The identity of that man has been hidden with significantly more dedication than that of Inko Midoriya, despite the latter being a hidden S-rank villain. I believe you can understand why this only makes me more intrigued. All Might and Tsukachi nod with understanding. Sir is unreadable, and then I gave up, Nezu announces, catching them off guard. Don't get me wrong, I think that I managed to crack the enigma. I just gave up on trying to investigate it from grounds up. There is only a limited number of people who can warrant this degree of cover-up. Other supervillains, notable heroes, major celebrities that somehow aren't heroes, influential politicians. I actually decided to make face-to-face comparisons between them and the known parts of the Midoriya family, one by one, and that was really time-consuming work. Even with my quirk, Eraserhead can imagine that. Thankfully, Lemillion managed to expose the Izuku's current face to the world with his punch. This made my work significantly easier, especially as something in my mind clicked after seeing it. Although it took me a while to come to a certain degree of certainty and I had to consult that with a specialist. This is an awfully long introduction to a reveal. Sir Night decides to interrupt. I have a feeling that we won't like the result. Nezu smiles. More than that, you are going to be absolutely something. Gauging human reactions to certain things is still complicated to me. The monitor on his desk turns to face them. On it is a picture of Izuku, and a large picture of whom Eraserhead presumes to be Midoriya and Ko to the upper right from Izuku. There is an open space to the upper left of it, probably waiting for the father's picture to be shown. We can all see the similarity, especially in terms of color of the hair, eyes, and so on. Nezu continues, but as we all know, there are things that one gets from their father. You are always a mix of your parents, with some random bits here and there. But when I look at Midoriya Izuku, I can't help but feel like a certain person's genetic heritage would fit the puzzle perfectly, especially when you consider what we know about Izuku's intelligence, interest in quirks, and so on. Nezu clicks something on his keyboard. A new picture shows up on the screen. One of a white-haired man with red eyes. Eraserhead spots some hard-to-pinpoint similarity between him and Izuku, despite the vastly different coloration. The messy hair is the biggest one. There are also details on the face, like the shape of eyes, nose, and so on that carry some faint similarity. It's at this moment that Eraserhead notices that the room is silent, much more than he expected. Then he looks around. All Might, Sir Night and Tsukachi are practically white. Lemillion appears to be as lost as Eraserhead is. No, All Might manages to speak. That's impossible. There's just... Nezu raised his paw. Before we discuss it, I believe that it's time to introduce the man in the picture to young Lemillion and Eraserhead. Principal says confidently, this man is the world's one and only SSSS rank villain, uncrowned emperor of the Japanese underground with influence spread over the entire world. Man spoken of as a legend by the regular villains, but referred to as symbol of evil by the supervillain. Villain so dangerous that the Commission, the government, and I all agreed to keep his existence a secret so as to not provoke a panic. the man who tortured All Might's mentor to death and tore out his stomach and lung when they battled, although All Might eventually managed to triumph and slay him, which happened 6 years ago. Nedzu sighs. We didn't expect that without him keeping the Metal Liberation Army, Quirkless Liberation Front, Creature Rejection Clan, Inhuman Supremacy Party and dozens of smaller groups on a tight leash, they would unleash that much havoc. Eraserhead could scarcely imagine someone controlling all those groups. But if he terrified All Might and Sir Night-Eye that much, what was his quirk? Lemillion asks the right question. Eraserhead would do it himself. Which one? Nedzu replies with a bitter chuckle. He had hundreds. He is the legendary quirk thief, man capable of stealing and granting quirks to others. He stole a longevity quirk early on. He was apparently one of the first quirked individuals in Japan. 2 centuries of organization building were something that even me and Mirai struggled to dismantle. Eraserhead heard about the quirk thief legend. He spent enough time as an underground hero, so it was a given. As much as he admitted that there were many odd quirks out there, that very idea always struck him as outlandish. But unless this was all an elaborate prank, that's just not possible. All Might was still in denial. That man would have never had a child. That's just it. Makes an uncomfortable amount of sense. Sir Night-Eye speaks. All Might's eyes crucify him with their gaze. Think about it, Yagi. Legion is an extremely intelligent tactician and strategist, with uncanny knowledge on operations of the villain groups that were formerly kneeling before that man. He appears to have an interest bordering on obsession when it comes to quirks, especially yours, and Legion's young age. If All For One was grooming him into being his successor or influential lieutenant from the youngest age until his demise, it all makes perfect sense. All For One. Lemillion interjects. Nedzu sighs. I think it's time to introduce you and Eraserhead into another secret, since they are connected and Aizawa is crucial in our dealings with Legion. Nedzu replies. All For One is the official name of the quirk thief's quirk, but it was also used as his other moniker. But he had a brother, one of poor health but a heroic heart. He was thought to be quirkless, and his brother gave him a power stockpiling quirk as a form of control. Nobody knew that All For One's brother had a fairly useless quirk that allowed itself to be willingly transferred to another person. Lemillion's eyes light up. While Eraserhead is still lost, the 2 quirks merged into one. It was then transferred from hero to hero, each of them hoping that someone down the line would finally grow strong enough to take down All For One. A fitting mechanism considering that the quirk's name was One For All. Eraserhead could agree with that much, and their wish was realized 6 years ago, when All Might, the current holder of the One For All, managed to kill All For One. However, recently he transferred the quirk to Lemillion, and now everything makes sense. It sounds like a fairy tale, yes, but a fairly sensible fairy tale. Eraserhead can work with that. It all feels like a teenage rebellion. Eraserhead points out, and all the eyes gather at him. I mean, if he is All For One's son, then they were together until his 10th birthday. And if he was as powerful and influential as you claim, then I just failed to see how he could be there for his son very often. Certainly not common enough to deter his son from developing an unhealthy obsession for heroism and becoming a terminal case of All Might's fan. Eraserhead continues. All Might then killed his dad, but despite that Legion did his utmost to not kill or wound All Might during the USJ attack. So unlike Thunderbolt and his mom, he doesn't seem to have a grudge. He even saved Lemillion's life and then let him return home, despite Lemillion carrying One For All and practically fist-nuking him into half-death minutes earlier. So it seems to me that Legion was groomed to be that All For One successor. But when his half-deadbeat dad died out, he started to successively eradicate his old empire out of spite for bad parenting or because he decided to be a hero in own rights. Like his uncle, the One For All first holder sounded like someone with potential. Unlike a lot of his past students, Eraserhead would have liked to meet him. Being ready to stand up against All For One despite being almost quirkless was impressive. Oh my god, All Might looks like his entire life was just rearranged in front of him. All For One's son is my fan. Eraserhead thinks that this isn't the most important part of what he said, but whatever floats the hero's boat. The potential All For One's son, Nedzu reminds. But yes, I agree with Eraserhead's opinion. The most ironic part of it is that if we are correct, then All For One's son is dismantling his father's empire, while using his father's funds to pay for it, because we know how ridiculously well-funded the League is despite no sounds of income. Nedzu sighs. It would also explain how he knows so much about past One For All holders. His father probably described them to him in some butchered form at some point, as he killed most of them personally. Nedzu looks around. Consider this a theory, with circumstantial evidence, but a rather solid one. And now, what do we do about it? You a spy, I have news for you. You a spy, but you are going to shit bricks when you hear it. Small Might, very few things can ruin my mood right now. We're all celebrating the raid in the base. Small Might, wish you were here. You a spy, Nedzu just figured out that your father is All For One. Small Might, he what? Small Might, oh shit. You a spy, Wait, don't do something dumb in a hurry. UA Spy, I think they find it hilarious. Small Might, what? UA Spy, they came to a conclusion that you were groomed to be his successor. UA Spy, but then you went into a teenage rebellion phase. Small Might, the what? UA Spy, and you're now dismantling his old empire. UA Spy, out of spite for him being a deadbeat father or SMTH. UA Spy, also you almost gave All Might a heart attack when he realized that if that's true then his arch-nemesis son is practically worshipping him and has just committed a mass murder for him. UA Spy, he sounds like you just realigned his entire worldview and he doesn't know what to feel about it. UA Spy, also they think that your parents are dead. Small Might, so close and yet so far. Small Might, Jesus Christ, what's that rat smoking? Small Might, I thought that I was good. Small Might, but he is just ridiculous. Small Might, how did he figure out? UA Spy, apparently he decided that it was odd that your mother is a supervillain and yet he found out about her, but your father is somehow 10 times better concealed. UA Spy, so he started visually comparing your and your mother photos to photos of people whom can be considered to be worth of greater secrecy than an S rank in hiding. UA Spy, then Lemillion blew off your mask and showed your face to the world. UA Spy, and things clicked. Small Might, I call bullshit. Small Might, seriously, what in the ever-fuck-living biscuits is that logic? Small Might, I'm so done. Small Might, so what are they going to do about it? UA Spy, nothing. Small Might, what? UA Spy, they find it hilarious, I told you. UA Spy, they will try to apprehend you if they found out how to dismantle the League. UA Spy, they are giving their best to catch you, but Nedzu sounds like a father proud of his son's achievements when he talks about you. UA Spy, I think that he is looking forward to your further rampage. UA Spy, just act like your parents vanished on you and you'll be okay. UA Spy, ask Tenko for tips XDD. Small Might, that's just nasty lol. UA Spy, also don't make them suspect that you have his quirk. UA Spy, and you're golden. Small Might, I'm simultaneously frightened to the bone and reassured. UA Spy, also Lemillion just fucking psychoanalyzed you to the base particle level. UA Spy, and boy if he isn't correct. Small Might, what? UA Spy, listen to this. He does. Small Might, holy shit, Lemillion is so cool of a hero, I'm so happy that he gave me his autograph before leaving. Small Might, and it's apparently his first one ever. Small Might, I'm going to treasure it like All Might's signature. Small Might, also I'm telling Yuri that he is an awesome hero. Small Might, she might like him because he has a funny face that should be easy to draw tbh. Small Might, but yeah, part of this I didn't think about, but I kinda agree with the general outline. UA Spy, just don't tell your dad that you are cleaning the country for All Might and trying to make the heroics great again. UA Spy, he might snap from his retirement if he hears that his son is hero with villain methods. Small Might, I'm a villain. Small Might, I use quirks to break the law. Small Might, murder people. Small Might, that's evil and wrong, even if it's just the certain type of people that totally deserve it for being quirkist murderers or stains on the good name of heroics. UA Spy, dude, I literally heard Lemillion describe that, but better than you did, don't even bother. Small Might, no one loves me anymore. UA Spy, we have Himiko for that. The best part of having Stain around was the combat training. They had something comparable to a training room in the basement, and Stain was ready to kill his boredom between League operations with some harsh training. Not everyone took part. Legion, Zealot, Spinner, and Vampire showed up on their own. Decay, Gremlin, and Mindscrew attended when Legion told them to. Decay could benefit a lot, but he hated distraction from playing computer games. Gremlin actually had a sword and a shield as a part of her villain outfit, but tearing her away from her constant baby-making was a pain. Mindscrew liked guns, but was willing to figure out some self-defense measures if enemies got close. Unfortunately, he was just as much of a lazy ass as Decay. Quirks were allowed. In all honesty, everything was allowed. Legion was there and he could literally resurrect someone if they died. Didn't happen until now, but they still had to clean a lot of blood from the floor on an almost daily basis. At least Gremlin developed a specialized floor cleaning baby for the job. Since quirks were allowed, Legion loved watching the training even when he was acting as a nurse. It was brutal, but quirks. This never got boring. Vampire sat on the bench next to him, bleeding from a few nasty cuts. He fixed them with Overhaul, but she was obviously exhausted, so she wanted to rest for a bit. There was something dreamy in her eyes, probably due to how much the room had to smell of blood. It also made her much more touchy. Izuku got used to it somewhere along the way. Izu, she leans for a hug. He doesn't say a thing when he feels her fangs piercing his shoulder. Himiko sucks a lot of blood before pulling back. I never get tired of your taste, Zuko. He also doesn't get tired of her doing that, but he's too shy about certain things to admit it. That can be skewed in the wrong way. Izuku replies with a chuckle. He uses Overhaul to reset himself and the bite wound vanishes. You know, I'm starting to suspect that you have a complex mutant quirk. That surprises her. Mutant quirks normally don't make people into shapeshifters. Wait, what? She asks. Her bloodlust is mostly sated right now, and she is back to acting more or less normal. I mean, think about it. Izuku really enjoys this subject. Complex mutant quirks tend to influence a lot of things in a more or less permanent manner, unlike emitter, transformation, or even simple mutant quirks, who are much more singular. You have your blood transformation thing, yes, but you also have permanent fangs. This alone could be considered a minor mutant factor made necessary by your quirk mechanism. But think about it. Drinking blood doesn't only allow you to transform into people, it recovers your stamina. I'm almost certain that it makes your wounds close faster. You actually need to do that to avoid anemia, and your body knows about it well enough to make you lust for it when you are blood deprived. You have an enhanced smell, although it works best when it comes to detecting blood. You can even tell people's blood from each other when you focus on it hard enough. Yes, Himiko nods. I'm also fairly certain that your body is stronger and more agile than it should be concerning your body ... ERRR. I mean, you don't seem to have well-defined muscles, yet your strength is only marginally smaller than Mei's, but you are way more agile. He really isn't confident talking about her body, and it is rather obvious. Himiko, as always, finds that cute. Gremlin was an engineer. She carried a lot of things around. It surprised a lot of people, but she was built like an athlete. Her six-pack was no joke. So I'm like, a vampire mutant. Himiko is surprised by the idea. What about shapeshifting then? Isn't that a transformation quirk? Actually, I read a lot about mutant quirks recently. Izuku replies. Apparently there are rare cases when a complex mutant quirk coincides with a transformation or emitter quirk. However, when that happens, said additional quirks are almost always of a similar theme. So for example, a complex frog mutant will not develop a fire ability, but might, albeit chance is minimal, develop a water or poison quirk or something like that. So I developed a theory that you are like that, with both a vampire mutant quirk and an aligned blood transformation quirk. But we won't really be sure until we see what sort of quirks will your children and he. Izuku wasn't really thinking about what he was saying. He was in his almost mumbling about quirks mod. Realization strikes him hard and he instantly goes red. Himiko's reaction is identical, but she recovers quicker and goes for the throat. So, our children will all be cute and kind criminal mastermind vampires. If it was manga, Izuku would let out a puff of smoke through his ears. He is down for the count. Himiko takes advantage of that by relocating onto his lap and hugging him closer. Stop teasing me like that, Himi, he whispers while trying to cover his face. She kisses him on the cheek and laughs internally when he is even more startled. I can't help it, it's too much fun. She replies honestly. Come on, I still have a few more minutes before Stain drags me back into the ring. You can talk about quirks if you want. Consider this a payback for teasing. She likes hearing him talk about quirks. He is so focused, so enthusiastic about it. So, for example, why did they come to be? Nobody knows that for sure. He replies quickly. I think I'm in the, intelligent design camp, though. Intelligent design? She asks curiously. So, like, God made them. God, gods, aliens, creatures from different dimensions. Perhaps our subconscious will or something like that. He quickly replies. She is still on his lap, but she can see the shyness evaporate as his mind moves over to his favorite subject. I have no idea which option is correct, but the quirks aren't random enough to be a natural occurrence. Cases like Dabai, who got powerful flames and resistance to low temperatures instead of high, are extremely rare and tend to occur when someone tries to go into vastly incompatible eugenics. Many quirks are accompanied by a multitude of secondary characteristics that make them stronger and easier to use. This happens even among the random mutations, so people like Tenko. But mutations should be random. And it makes no sense for someone to suddenly develop several different traits all in perfect harmony with each other. So I'm suspecting some will behind all of that, especially when you take in quirks such as the one Zealot got. In the background, the villain in question receives a truly nasty punch to the face from Stain. He lands on the floor and only narrowly manages to dodge the kick. His quirk is all-round strength, speed, and endurance amplification during combat. Izuku continues, provided that he sees himself as good and his enemy as evil. And the stronger the moral difference he perceives, the greater the power boost. But the point is, his quirk is grounded not only in his personal perception but also in abstract concepts. I can understand Redestro's quirk, who has a power boost proportional to stress level, but Zealot's quirk is simply too abstract. So is yours, if it's actually a complex mutant one. There are some blood-drinking bats, but you are obviously way closer to the cultural image of vampires, and they never existed. So either there is something granting the powers at will to people, or the awakening of quirks is based on our own minds, meaning that we subconsciously design our own powers. She loves hearing his lectures. She knows he is smart, but seeing him all confident and talkative is just actually kinda sexy. She listens to him intently because he says interesting things, but she isn't blind to other things. He is done with that lecture, so she is going to let him make another. Stain still didn't notice her absence, and Stain, what about Stain? She asks, and he eyes her questioningly. He has a blood paralysis quirk, yes, but I can scarcely imagine a human being moving as fast as he does. He is way faster than me, and you say that I might be above human level in that field. I'm actually kinda into pre-quirk cultural imagining of heroes and villains, although they were referred to as superheroes and supervillains back then. He replies promptly. She knows about that. He mentioned it more than once, but still feels kinda ashamed to admit it. She likes his nerdy qualities, but he fails to get used to that idea. The point is, they didn't have quirks back then, so they imagined many different ways of obtaining superhuman degrees of ability. We mostly dialed back culturally to quirks and only that, but there were more types back then. There is a genuine curiosity on her face. She can scarcely imagine a hero or a villain not using a quirk. Okay, maybe if they were really smart, Izuku would have managed to do scary stuff with the League even without his quirk. She is certain about that. For example, some such superhumans got the super part from dealing with some supernatural entity. Izuku replies, religious or not, others from gadgets and intellect. We can honestly count Gremlin as an example. She has a quirk, but it's mostly useless when it comes to combat, so she is using various gadgets she created to cross the gap. Himeko suddenly realizes that while she didn't think about it earlier, this makes perfect sense. You had people who were simply incredibly smart, so all those masterminds and, well, honestly, Stain's strength and speed is either the so-called Charles Atlas superpower or quirk-enhanced genetics. Charles Atlas. She never heard of the name. Is that some old scientist or someone like that? Charles Atlas superpower is a superhuman power obtained by training. Izuku replies, I mean, imagine that someone you know is a serious bodybuilder, so he pretty much lives in the gym. When this eventually makes him go beyond what's possible for humans, and he is suddenly able to throw around All Might grade punches due to the training making him impossibly strong. It's Charles Atlas superpower. So Stain amassed so much training and combat experience that, together with his absolutely mindless dedication, it made him able to go beyond the limits of what humans should be capable of. She asks, and he gives her a yes, you are super right, good job smile that makes her heart melt even further. He probably forgot that she was on his lap. The alternative is the theory that quirks enhance humans as a whole, even passively. Izuku continues, blissfully unaware of how the girl cuddling with him is melting down in his arms. That's what my dad thinks, but personally I think he is too. Quirk-centered in his thinking. But he did tell me that when he was young, what passed for powerful emitter quirk users was significantly squishier than today, and that every subsequent generation appears to be stronger in general than the past one. Not only in terms of their quirks. Wait, she says, and he pauses his lecture. Is that why you are, kinda weak? Sorry to put it like that, but you're physically the weakest of us all. And that's after I found out that you were using strength amp and reflex boost during our training. And you are something like a half-second generation quirked person, yes. Yes. Izuku replies with just a hint of shame. Dad actually keeps 4 of 5 endurance enhancement quirks active when in combat to bridge that gap. Because otherwise Stain would have probably knocked him out with a single punch if he wanted, even without quirk. The difference isn't massive when you compare me and the average human being out there. So Dad's theory is that this general passive augmentation is tied to the strength of your quirk. So, for example, Endeavor could probably remain standing and in combat after 2 or 3 regular All Might punches, despite being an emitter quirk user. Overhaul was built way scrawnier than the former number 2 hero and had no strength enhancement quirk to rely on. But I saw him remain standing after Dad's punch. Not one of his stronger ones, but I saw this quirk combo split a stone boulder in half. Makes sense. Himeko replies after a while of thinking. But, weren't they both rather single-minded in their quirk usage? Endeavor was a training freak, and Overhaul sounds like someone who constantly overused their quirk. So, maybe it's still that Charles Atlas thing. You can't say that they lack dedication and conviction when it comes to growing stronger. His eyes beam. She said something right. Yes, I thought the same. His enthusiasm is childishly innocent, and it's the second cutest thing she ever saw after his adopted sister. So I kinda combined the two theories. I believe that passive genetic augmentation makes the growth ceiling raise higher and higher with every subsequent generation. But it's the dedication to training your quirk and certain form of mental focus on strength growth that lets some people reach said ceiling. So I think she never found out what he was thinking. Someone grabs her from behind by the collar. She looks back and sees Stain standing there, towering over Himeko. Behind him she can see several incapacitated villains. I'm going to borrow her for a while. His eyes scream pain. Vampire Princess, note to you all. Vampire Princess, do not let the Supreme Leader Small Might talk about your quirk. Vampire Princess, unless you are ready to have your entire life turned upside down. Small Might, it wasn't that bad. I just shared some observations. Fuck school. Sneaky Gecko, oh, Insomniac, tell me. Vampire Princess, yeah, so we are kinda cuddling in the training room. Vampire Princess, atmosphere is romantic. I tease him about things because he is so cute when shy. Handyman, normies. Insomniac, normies. Fuck school, lol. UA spy, I have a feeling that this is going to be a good one. Vampire Princess, and suddenly he is like, did you know that you are actually a complex mutant? Sneaky Gecko, what? Insomniac, the fuck? Fuck school, what sort of complex mutant quirk makes you into a shapeshifter? Small Might, sigh. UA spy, I called it XD, holy shit. Vampire Princess, apparently I'm somewhat a vampire mutant thing. Vampire Princess, so I drink blood for the living, can smell blood from a distance. Drinking makes me recover stamina, probably heal faster, and I'm also stronger and more agile than I should be considering my body build. Vampire Princess, also there are rare cases of double quirk bearers, with one quirk being a complex mutant one and another being a thematically compatible non-mutant quirk. Vampire Princess, so a frog human might get a water emitter quirk but not fire emitter quirk. And since I'm all about blood, I got a blood transformation quirk. Vampire Princess, but apparently we won't be 100% sure until I have children. And if they all turn out to be little vampires, then I'm officially a complex mutant. Sneaky Gecko, welcome to the Complex Mutant Club. Vampire Princess, thank you, do I get a t-shirt? Sneaky Gecko, we should get some, yes. Handyman, always knew you were a human tick. Now I'm just more certain. Vampire Princess, hey, that's hate speech when I'm a complex mutant greater than lesser than. Handyman, don't care. Vampire Princess, also I faintly remember my parents telling me that I was extremely vulnerable to sunburns when small. Vampire Princess, so after the revelation from Small Might I thought about it and I think I stopped being that much sunburned when they finally gave up on trying to find a way of making me quote-unquote normal. Vampire Princess, and I started getting blood regularly. Vampire Princess, so I might be vulnerable to sunlight if blood-starved. Insomniac, Himiko, I developed a weakness. Insomniac, Tenko, yay. Insomniac, Himiko, it's sunlight. Insomniac, Tenko, I don't know what that is but I'll find out and use it against you. Small Might, LOL. Handyman, fuck off. Fuck school, XDDD. UA spy, ouch XD. Sneaky Gecko, PFFFFT. Small Might, since normal light doesn't do that to you, I suspect that it's the UV light. Small Might, I'll add it to the notes, thanks for the heads up. Sneaky Gecko, notes. Vampire Princess, half of his villain lair / study / second room is pretty much an archive about cool quirks. Heroes, villains or neither. Alive or dead. Doesn't matter. Vampire Princess, strengths, super moves, weaknesses, theories on how they work. Vampire Princess, he is a bit of a quirk analyst. Not sure if you've noticed. Sneaky Gecko, I think I kinda did. Small Might, hey, it's not that large of an archive. Stop making it sound like it's something it's not. Vampire Princess, how many quirks you've dissected like that? Small Might, just a few thousand? It's not that much. UA spy, handyman, nerd. Insomniac, get a hobby dud. Oh wait, that's your hobby. Insomniac, get a second one then. Insomniac, also at handyman, stop kink-shaming your best friend. Small Might, that's not a kink. Come on people. Handyman, oh, Handyman, so you didn't analyze Himiko's quirk in DETILS. Handyman, what was that about her body build? Small Might, is that a revenge for me wanting to find you a cat girl? Handyman, yes. UA spy, you there? Small Might, always, unless certain princess is busy cuddling me to death because she is too afraid that I'll try to stop All Might punch with my face again when she lets me leave her sight. UA spy, your crush at least notices you. Small Might, rip. UA spy, then again it might be for the best. Who knows when I'm exposed? Small Might, fair. Small Might, so what is it about? UA spy, Blueberry wants a lift out of QLF. UA spy, Blueberry +3, apparently. Small Might, oh. UA spy, they don't know about the league, but I did mention that I might get someone to help them without putting them in jail for what they did while part of the front. Small Might, why though? Small Might, I'm all in for a way to deal damage to the front, but they are famous for fanatical loyalty of their members. Now they seem to be winning and suddenly. This, UA spy, it's because they are winning. Small Might, am confused. UA spy, just had a very emotional talk with Blueberry. UA spy, she isn't sure how much longer can she keep that special phone from Gremlin hidden BTW. UA spy, she finally told me actual things about QLF and things are going from bad to worse. Small Might, what? UA spy, they keep receiving manpower and equipment from somewhere. Eclipse warps them in. UA Spy. New recruits are quirkless, but most of them aren't speaking Japanese. UA Spy. Looks like the Eclipse's victories put eyes of quirkless liberation groups throughout the world on Japan. UA Spy. Recent attacks are launched only with past members of QLF, while the new recruits are training. UA Spy. QLF now has at least 5,000 active members and counting. And the 4,000 new ones have an equipment as good as the first 1,000. Small might. Jesus Christ. They are gathering strength for some major operation. UA Spy. And nobody knows a fucking thing. UA Spy. Things get worse. Small might. Shit. UA Spy. Eclipse is turning increasingly deranged. UA Spy. We all know that quirkless are treated by the society as subhumans. UA Spy. And that they have the reasons to be pissed off. Small might, yes, UA Spy. But lots of people like Blueberry join to be safe from abuse, meet others like her, and to help set others. UA Spy. But the cells in the field had limited contact with the leadership due to the secrecy. And so on. UA Spy. Now they operate together, and some field cells with ideology akin to Blueberry's discovered that the front leadership is a fucking doomsday cult. Small might. What? UA Spy. Eclipse goes on rants how quirkless might be a dying breed and how they have nothing to lose, so they can as well die out in flames and make the quirk that survive remember them with fear. UA Spy. The new recruits seem to be agreeing with her. UA Spy. Until now the QLF was mostly focused on destroying political or quirk-aligned targets, while shooting random people was a second priority. UA Spy. Once they start moving their main force, I think that they will slaughter everyone in sight, especially the defenseless civilian. UA Spy. And that's still not the worst. Small might. UA Spy. Blueberry's cell leader went out to talk about the kill everything that moves policy with his higher-ups. UA Spy. Apparently similar in ideology to her and pretty swell guy. UA Spy. He returned 3 hours later spouting the same slogans as Eclipse with fanatical zeal. Small might. Shit. Brainwashing quirk. UA Spy. Some form of. UA Spy. I think they got a late bloomer with powerful brainwashing quirk, but they can't use it super quickly, so they started from key members or those that dared to speak out against Eclipse. UA Spy. Eventually they are going to get Blueberry, so she wants a lift out, preferably a SP. UA Spy. I got the coordinates of the QLF main base, and she is willing to tell everything she can about the layout, so we can lift them out with Kurogiri. Small might. It won't work. UA Spy. What? Small might. Ever heard of warp interference? UA Spy. No. Is it something about warp quirks? Small might. Yeah. Warp quirks naturally suppress each other. Small might. There was a case in Poland I think 30 years ago when two twins awakened warp quirks but were thought to be quirkless until they were 12 years old. Then one of them had an accident and was taken to a hospital 10 kilometers away from their village, and it turned out that they were warp interfering each other for the past 12 years. Small might. You can warp to an area of warp interference, and there is technically an option to force a warp from the area if you are skillful enough with warp quirks, but no casual warp outs. Small might. So if we warp to the QLF base while Eclipse is around, Kurogiri won't be able to evacuate us and we'll get caught up with 5,000 frothing fanatics and 2 supervillains. Small might. Worst of all, Eclipse will know instantly that something is interfering with her warp quirk, and while I don't think she knows about warp interference phenomenon, she will certainly put the base on high alert. UA Spy. Fuck. Small might. On the other hand, wait, I think I have an idea. Small might. It's crazy but might work. UA Spy. How can I help you? Small might. Can Blueberry tell me with at least a few minutes of time to spare about what city is going to be attacked next and where Eclipse is planning to warp to inside of it? Few days ahead if possible. Eraserhead was slowly getting used to Legion phoning him, each time from a different burner phone, and each time from a completely different, impossible place. Apparently the last talk was from the South Pole, which the underground hero frankly didn't buy. He was ready to bet a jelly pouch that Gremlin had her fingers in it. Hello there, Eraserhead. Legion sounded unusually cheerful. I have news concerning the QLF. Situation was a bit awkward, because he was in the teacher's lounge, happily nudged into a corner behind a couch where nobody could see him, and he was finally alone. He was tired after his homeroom, and he planned to remain hidden even if someone came looking for him. Please tell me that Eclipse and the QLF as a whole decided to retire. Aizawa sighs loudly. At this point I think that the government would have paid them just to get rid of the issue without losing more towns. At least it sounds like Lemillion's theory about Legion going after the QLF is confirmed. That makes Eraserhead slightly relieved. Nope. Legions bring him back to Earth. Actually my news is of the oh crap we're all going to die type. Eraserhead didn't want to hear anything like that when he was crawling off his bed this morning. Alas, life is brutal. Great. The underground hero wants to go to sleep, but he can't. What is it? Eclipse impressed the International Quirkless Terror Group enough for them to start pitching in reinforcements to her ongoing guerrilla campaign. Legion delivers his news. First sentence is already a massive headache. both in manpower and equipment. She continues raiding towns with the original front members to lull heroes' vigilance. But my source in the QLF states that she has several thousand new recruits going through a rush training regimen, and enough weapons to equip them all. Well, fuck. Eraserhead rarely curses, but if this message is true, this is a perfect moment to swear. So they are prepping for a large assault on something. Any ideas on that? Source doesn't know, but I have a theory. Legion replies. Eclipse is rushing the training as if in a hurry, and isn't the island going to get close to Japan soon? That is bad news, Eraserhead decides. His ability to understate the gravity of the situation is truly astounding. Destruction of Island, the world's center of quirk research, would be a monumental blow to the quirk community and a rallying cry for abused quirkless worldwide. I'm actually planning to assassinate Eclipse before that happens, Legion says, and Eraserhead finds himself staring blankly. Did he just hear? As a late bloomer, I can understand the woes of the quirkless, and if they focused on assassinating abusive heroes and politicians, then I wouldn't bat an eye. Hell, I would probably forward some monthly donations to them. But now the QLF is descending into doomsday cult status. Eclipse is apparently going on rants on how quirkless are a dying breed and that if they are going to die out, they could as well make the world remember them with fear. And at least the new recruits bought that wholeheartedly. Oh no, thinks Eraserhead. This is going from bad to worse. You can expect them to leave less and less survivors with every subsequent attack. Legion continues. Also, according to my source, the QLF got a late bloomer with a powerful brainwashing quirk. Everyone who speaks against exterminating quirk to the last one disappears and returns a few hours later, unconditionally agreeing with Eclipse. I think that she is planning to brainwash every QLF member eventually, but this takes time. And if they are brainwashed, they will certainly be killing everything that moves when she tells them to. Eraserhead's headache is approaching a full-blown migraine status. So, assassination. He decides to return to something that at least appears to be hopeful. Yes, Legion is silent after that short confirmation. For a bit too long. But you won't like the plan. I don't like any part of this talk, problem child. Eraserhead replies promptly. Dish it out so I can return to my nap faster. The League is going to ambush Eclipse the day after tomorrow. Legion is silent for a few seconds. When she comes to attack the UA. Full stop. She what? Eraserhead says louder than he thought. Ectoplasm notices his hideout, but returns to grading math homework instead of commenting. Tell me you are joking. I'm not, Legion replies. With the Hero Commission weakened, the UA is the main potential source of strength for the government. Without Nedzu to pull strings, getting several agencies to make a team up will take much more time, limiting the government's ability to form a proper response to further QLF raids. I think they also want to get rid of UA before attacking Island. Today and tomorrow they will make no raids to lull heroes into a false sense of safety, and then they will warp to Musutafu, outside of UAS warp coordinate scramblers range, but close enough for the gas to reach the school, and then they will assault you directly while you're down. I assume that you have a plan for all of that. Eraserhead hates the very concept of asking a villain about it, but he is certain that Nedzu will want to hear Legion's opinion on it either way. I have devised a way of isolating Eclipse during the warp, which should stop the QLF from warping in soldiers and launching the gas. Legion replies. So I'm going to ambush her when she starts the attack. But I need you to figure out a way of moving All Might and other high-profile heroes from UA elsewhere for a day to explain why they didn't make it to the battle, and to get the local police and heroes to focus on cordoning the area and evacuating civilians. You want to fight her on your own, which was interesting. Why? It's kinda personal, Legion replies. The point is that I need you to keep others from interfering. League is skilled enough to take her down, and I promise you she will be taken out of the picture if no local hero intervenes. Hearing that All Might isn't around and seeing 3 supervillains battling it out should deter them from trying to butt in. But, well, we all know that butting your head in when you aren't supposed to is the essence of being a hero. And now Legion was quoting All Might. Great, I'll see what I can do, he says. It all depends on Nedzu and a certain local detective. Cat provider, since you all seem to be very, very busy, I'm going to inform you that new villain rankings have been announced. Vampire Princess, oh shit. Cat provider, language. Vampire Princess, I'm sorry, Papagiri. Fuck school, it's a post-CRC raid ranking, yes. Cat provider, correct. UA spy, cries and no villain ranking. Small Might, at US spy don't worry, Nedzu will shit bricks when he finds out about you and what you're doing. He'll make you an S rank out of spite. UA spy, more like he'll make sure no one will ever hear about me. Small Might, stop being a smartass and figuring me out like that. Handyman, so. Cat provider, decay, a rank. Mustard, B rank. Gremlin, a rank. Handyman, yes. Fuck school, come on, what do I have to do to catch up with decay? Handyman, kill 100 people in 3 minutes. Fuck school, fair. Cat provider, Mindscrew, B rank. Dabai, a rank. Spinner, B rank. Sneaky Gecko, damn it. Insomniac. So first I keep hearing that my quirk is villainous, and then it turns out it's not flashy enough to get noticed when I turn to villainy. Insomniac. Life isn't fair. Handyman. Yes, suffer. Burn, burn, burn. Guess I'm in a rank for messing up in D-Hor alone since I did nothing else that was memorable. Small might, apparently. Burn, burn, burn. Even after ruining him and seeing him dead, I end up getting a high rank because of him. Burn, burn, burn. Shit. Small might. We'll work on that. Don't worry. Burn, burn, burn. THX. Cat provider. Zealot is a C rank. The rest remains as it was. Deus Volt. Small might. I think they still didn't figure out what your quirk is and that it was you who did purge in. Small might. They are going to move you all the way up to in a rank at once when they see you pulverize a villain with a punch. Small might. Don't worry. Deus Volt. Thanks. Fuck school. He speaks. Vampire princess. He speaks. Handyman. He speaks. Snaky gecko. He speaks. Burn, burn, burn. Traitor. Snaky gecko. No you. Purge the fakes. Izuku. We need to talk. Face to face. Despite the fact that Stain was a bit like an uncle to him, Izuku was still reasonably cautious when in the presence of the hero killer. That man was dangerous, and while their thoughts aligned on many fields, he was still a bit of a wild card. A wild card and the most dangerous of Izuku's assets. Decay might have excelled in annihilating crowds of people, and Vampire was an apt assassin and spy. But Stain would have promptly dispatched of them both if they went after him. He didn't receive an S-rank classification for being scary looking. Is that about the drawing on the fridge? Izuku tries to turn to humor when he enters and decides that he isn't sure how to read the look on Stain's face. I'm sorry that Eri didn't draw you in a scary enough way, but she. Just stop. Stain replies with a sigh. And tell me, why are we going after villains so much? Ah, so it's that talk, Izuku thinks. It was going to happen sooner or later, he knew about it. It's also the moment that decides whether Stain stays with the League. I thought you were alright with slaying those fakes that joined CRC. He asks. Let's nab the subject bit by bit, instead of going for the throat. Of course I was. Stain now looks at Izuku as if the smart kid he knew turned dumbass when nobody was looking. You know what I mean, so stop beating around the bush. Alright, Izuku replies. Stain wants the throat, so he gets the throat. It's because my plans changed a bit when I found out that Lemillion inherited All Might's quirk. He can see the O on Stain's face. I thought that he wouldn't pass it over, thinking that it served its purpose. So I seek to dismantle the country into some post-apocalyptic wasteland. Because that was honestly a better option than having his quirk die out and no hero strong enough to keep Distro, Eclipse and so on at bay. And what's your plan now? Stain is unexpectedly tranquil. Izuku is on guard because of that. It's mostly the same plan, actually. Izuku can see a shadow of confusion on Stain's face. But the difference is that I confirmed that UA faculty is honest in its heroic convictions and is ready to fight to make heroes into true heroes, which means that there is a genuine alternative to the HPSC on the hero's side. There is also the part where Lemillion will grow strong enough to become a new symbol of peace if given enough time. But it also means that All Might will grow weaker quickly and, honestly speaking, I think that Japan has a 50/50 chance of surviving the transition. There is going to be a war, if the QLF didn't start it already. But now I think that there is something worth saving in the current society. So, Stain is interested. Probably. The man is unreadable. So I'm going to dismantle the villain groups I don't like. Izuku replies, while leaving the villain groups I like, under the better version of my father's empire. My version. That took Stain off guard. They did have a talk about who All for One was. And he knows that Izuku wasn't super happy about his dad's methods and this. But before I can take up the mantle of the symbol of evil, I need to clean up the rabid remnants of my dad's times. I can't control the world of villains from the shadows when it's tearing itself apart. And I can't control the society from the shadows when the society is on fire. It was quite unexpected to him that Stain was the first person he talked to about it. Even his own girlfriend was yet to find out. It was a recent development. His meeting with Lemillion and the discovery of what Eclipse was up to has changed a lot of things. Then again, Stain inspired Izuku's personal outlook on heroism a lot, even without the hero killer knowing. In a way, Stain was his idol. Unlike All Might though, Izuku's approach to Stain was problematic. Izuku tried to separate All for One as a father from All for One as a villain. And similarly, he had to partially separate Stain the villain and Stain the demigod. Stain killed too many heroes. Some of them didn't deserve it. They should have their careers ruined. Yes, but killing was going too far. So while Izuku subscribed to the general idea that there were way too many fake heroes around, he was much less happy about Stain's methods. Which is why he only tried to kill people like Endeavor and Thunderbolt, who were too powerful to be taken down non-lethally. Dabai's revelations wouldn't be enough to destroy the former. The HPSC would still rescue him if he survived Hasu. He was too powerful and useful to be sent to jail. The CRC fallen heroes were mostly collateral, and that Izuku didn't consider them to be primary targets. The entire base was one big primary target. They just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Hearing Lemillion analysis and the fact that Nezu seemed to learn the lesson for now changed things even more. The idea of Legion being a hero villain. It was, somewhat, true. And if it was true, then he could as well act on it properly, with intent and will, instead of mere afterthought and unconscious wiggling. If spending time with Stain taught him anything, it was that you either went all out once you decided on something or didn't bother trying at all. His father's inheritance was an asset that could help him achieve the goal. Why should he shy away from using it? So you are interested in Lemillion. Because he is going to be your very own nemesis, Stain says. It's not a question, more like an observation, more like an antithesis. Izuku shrugs. If the collapse of my father's empire is any indication, bad order is still better than chaos. He was a monster, but he kept things ordered. All Might is his polar opposite who tried to achieve the same thing. Symbol of peace to oppose the symbol of evil. He knows that people need symbols. This is why the heroes honest to the word gathered around him and around the UA. And why the fakes all crowded around the Hero Commission and its president. The unofficial symbol of corruption. When ideologies are in conflict, the people develop convictions and dedication to their causes. And this is my plan. Stain understands and laughs. There is pride and interest in his laughter. So you will dismantle the Hero Commission to get rid of fake heroes, he says with his eyes gleaming, making those worthy of the title band around the new symbol of peace. All of that while dismantling the current villain groups, too dangerous and uncontrollable to continue existing. And when they are gone, your name will become the rallying cry of the remaining villains, the ones that you will allow to exist, and thus I will become the new symbol of evil. Izuku smiles, the polar opposite to Lemillion and whoever the next holder of the One for All will be. When the society will be working as it should, my resources will be limited and the symbol of peace will be triumphing. When peace and prosperity begin to wane, leaving people downtrodden and seeking a different world, I'll be there to guide them, and force the country to change, or change it myself. I will create a world where heroes are heroes and villains are villains, where fakes will be an exception and not a rule. Izuku smiles at his uncle. So will you become my blade, Uncle Stain? Stain stares at him for a few seconds. Izuku doesn't feel intimidated, not anymore. And finally, the hero killer speaks. When I heard you talk about your ideals for the first time after we met again, I actually considered slaughtering the League. You included, Stain says, genuinely surprising Izuku. You talked a lot, and there was a clear dedication to your ideas. But what about that? I could feel how immature you were deep enough. You were incredibly smart, reasonably ruthless, and had resources. The soil was perfect, yet what grew in it was mismatched. Almost fake. Izuku didn't expect Stain to describe him in such words. It was a lethal thing for most people. But Stain didn't stop talking. You considered yourself to have the ironclad determination and goal, but something was missing in both. The hero killer continues. Some crucial element. But you weren't or young, so I decided to give you a chance. So I tagged along, to see what was going to sprout from the seed that I saw in you. You took down Endeavor, and massacred the clan. Both great moves, but in both I saw you lacking. There was strength and smarts there, but you didn't seem to know where you were heading to. You showed me a mess of disjointed lines where you promised a drawing, random acts instead of a clear strategy to achieve your goals. You, perhaps unconsciously, were trying to find an answer for yourself. Stain pauses for a few seconds. Part of Izuku expects his sword to suddenly behead him. But this doesn't happen. My decision to wait was the correct one, it seems. Stain smiles. His smile is an equal part terrifying and reassuring. The seed finally sprouted. You finally see the big picture. You finally have a true goal in your life. One that you will follow until you die, or until you reach it. Your eyes are no longer clouded with indecisiveness when you talk about your father's heritage and about your own villainous career. I see no indecisiveness in you at all, and because of that, their eyes meet. The answer is yes, I'll be your blade, because you are finally worthy of wielding me. Let's murder Eclipse together. Fuck school, so. This actually happened. Handyman, what? Insomniac. Small Might, what is it? I'm kinda busy ATM. Fuck school, I just saw Vampire Princess moving your stuff from your room in the base to hers. Fuck school, so congrats. Insomniac. Normies. Handyman, normies. Fuck school, lol. Sneaky Gecko. Victory for the complex mutant team. Sneaky Gecko. Boss has an obviously good taste. Small Might. We spend so much time cuddling together in the evenings that we can as well make it official instead of sneaking around the hallways at night. It makes Kurogiri somewhat jumpy. Fuck school, cuddling. Really, Handyman, we are reaching dangerous level of normies. Fuck school. Honestly, I can kinda imagine you two actually cuddling in the evening since moving to something spicy makes you blow smoke from ears and lay there unconscious. Cat provider, I wish to inform you that something akin to that just happened. Vampire Princess just checked her phone and is currently incapacitated in my bar. Cat provider, please stop incapacitating my wards in my bar. Fuck school, yeah, what Uncle Jiri said. Small Might, please stop investigating my love life. Small Might, there is little to investigate aside from her teasing me while being unfailingly encouraging and listening to my mumblings. Handyman, let's be real. We lost the boss to the 3D woman when he made a theory about her quirk being a mutant one. Handyman, he said that only her having children can confirm his quirk theory. Handyman, so they started to working on that. Fuck school, lol. Insomniac, ouch. Small Might, what? No. Small Might, Tenko, stop doing that. Handyman, revenge is nice. Player 2. Handyman, I like its taste. Cat Provider, I look forward to babysitting your children. At Small Might. Small Might, Trader Jiri. Small Might, you just want grandchildren and you gave up on Tenko. Handyman, yes, 2D only, sorry. Small Might, and also please know I'm having my 17th birthday in like a week. I'm too young to have children. Dad was like 2 centuries old before he decided to have exactly one. Sneaky Gecko, isn't 2 centuries a bit too much of an over-exaggeration? How old was he really? Cat Provider, it's hard to say something about his father without making it sound like an over-exaggeration. Burn, burn, burn. Small Might, yes, I should probably explain some things soon to the new members, especially as Nedzu figured out most of it. Small Might, Unklajiri, our zealot, Spinner and Dabai in the bar RN. Cat Provider, depends. Small Might, on. Cat Provider, are you going to properly and legally marry at Vampire Princess at the first possible moment instead of staying an eternal boyfriend? Fuck school. Oh wow, Papajiri takes no prisoners. Fuck school. No mercy for the boy messing with his daughter. Insomniac, why is Small Might silent so long? Handyman, he is probably getting steamed by what's coming from his ears. Handyman, like she is. Handyman, normies. Insomniac, normies. Fuck school, lol. Sneaky Gecko, okay, so we are now among those who know. Sneaky Gecko, and well. Burn, 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 I can barely compute. Deus Volt, yes. Fuck school. It gets easier to think about after a week or so of having your view on life tilted upside down. Sneaky Gecko, I see. Sneaky Gecko, to know that Quirk Thief exists and he is boss dad? Wow. Sneaky Gecko, I mean it kinda explains why he is so much into quirks, I think. Sneaky Gecko, it's pretty cool if bone-chilling scary. Small Might, I actually wanted to make an announcement concerning that. Small Might, I know I should be saying this face to face, but I want to have it said and done before the battle, which is tomorrow, and I'm currently inspecting the battlefield with Stain. Small Might, giving him a disguise that people don't see through is what makes me look up to Vampire Princess as a true master of disguises and infiltration. Fuck school, I need to see the pictures. Purge the fakes, only if you want to die. Fuck school, I no longer want to see the pictures. Small Might, so, it's the hour that you are all active in, so I shall just say it and then mention details in person. Small Might, I've made a decision that the best way of proceeding with the League of Villains goals is for me to actually become my father's successor and a new symbol of evil. Fuck school, what? You a spy. Nedzu is going to have a heart attack XDD if he has a heart, sources disagree. Handyman, so Guildmaster is going to ascend to godhood at the end of this questline. Handyman, cool. Sneaky Gecko, oh. Insomniac, so you are no longer touchy about his methods. Insomniac, I'm not even going to guess how many people he killed or worse in his life. Small Might, methods will change. Idea of becoming the villain equivalent of the symbol of peace did not. Small Might, father's death caused years of chaos throughout the country. I want to clean up the overly ambitious rabble, pick up who is sane enough to work with. Small Might, once Nedzu dismantles the Hero Commission, we'll have a world of black and white, as Uncle Stain would like to. Small Might, villains versus heroes, each with their own leader to keep things balanced. Insomniac, as all things should be. Small Might, nerd. Small Might, the biggest change will be to the methods. Small Might, I mean, let's be real. Small Might, I'm not going to pull a you have outlived your usefulness on Tenko for failing at something and then give his Opus PLS nerf quirk to someone else to turn them into a fanatically loyal tool. Handyman, okay normie. Small Might, don't test me PLS XD. Small Might, the point is, you are my friends. Vampire Princess, or more. Small Might, yes, Tenko is best friend. Vampire Princess. Small Might, I might be pulling this shit on other groups that will end up as our satellite organizations. Small Might, but Leagueism will be something else. Small Might, trust, honesty and camaraderie for the win. Small Might, some of you have joined us with a goal in mind. Small Might, for those who don't know, Miss Explosion, fuck school, Deus Volt, burn, burn, burn. Insomniac, let's not comment on how this entire line is pretty much I have problems and it's about my parents just in several different versions, because TBH we all wouldn't be here if not for the bad parenting. Small Might, yeah I'm not touching that subject with a 50 feet pole encased in barbed wire. Vampire Princess. Also, let's not comment how many of said parents ended up being killed by us, because honestly, I'm not sure if I want to join such a t-shirt club. Small Might. Jesus fucking Christ, I'm sending you all to a group therapy after eclipse. Now stop derailing the convo. You a spy? Hey, my parents are alright. Small Might. Your parents are dead. You a spy? Okay, so my parents were alright. Stop complaining about my grammar. You're not present, Mike. Insomniac. Keep derailing the convo and boss will change him into a past Mike. Fuck school, lol. Small Might. Okay, stop with an off-top, I'm having an important moment here, damn it. Small Might. Alright, so. Small Might. I only got one of this objectives completed, but let me be honest here and now. Small Might. The second you joined us, those goals became my goals. Even if you die or are incarcerated, I will continue working on fulfilling your wishes in your stead. You're part of the league, you are my friends, you are pretty much family. That's enough for me. Small Might. Others might be here because they are my friends and just want to see my own goals fulfilled, but the logic persists. For as long as you are part of the league, you are part of the family. Small Might. Some have their motivations a bit harder to describe, but it's still alright. Purge the fakes. My goal is you achieving your goals. We had that talk already. You a spy? Same. Small Might. Yeah, thank you, D. Vampire Princess. What was that about the blood bag? Small Might. Savor the taste. We're testing the way your body operates while blood deprived after eclipse is dead. Vampire Princess. Shit. Vampire Princess. But why? Small Might. Because I want to. Vampire Princess. So you want to see me squirm in pain, begging you for release. Kinky. Small Might. What? Fuck school. Busted. Small Might. Time out, I'm not having that talk with you. Back to the main subject. Vampire Princess. Alwa. Small Might. So is there anyone who has issues with me becoming a shadow emperor of the Japanese underworld? Or questions? Cat Provider. Does your father know you changed your mind? Small Might. No, and I plan to keep it that way until I get the organizational framework set up. We might have some achievements, but we don't even have any group loyal to us except for Dr. Evil, but I don't trust him and want him dead ASAP. Small Might. I have an idea how to change it very soon, but we need to deal with Eclipse first. Miss Explosion. I sense lots of occasions for baby making. Small Might. When we get the basics set up, I'm going to get you an exclusive sub-organization dedicated to providing high-quality support items and outfits to the villains from subsidiary groups. Miss Explosion. HATSUMEINDUSTRIESLIVESAGIN. Miss Explosion. Now I really want to have a baby with you. Insomniac. For the first time in forever, I'm not sure what she means by baby. Insomniac. It is incredibly confusing. Vampire Princess. 3. I'm interested. We need to have a girl talk about it. Small Might. Stop trying to build me a harem only because I decided to become a shadow emperor of Japan. Vampire Princess. Awa. But it would be so sexy. More is better. Think of all the things we could to do together. Insomniac. Normies. Small Might. Normies. Handyman. Normies. Handyman. Wait, what? Insomniac. There is a spy among us. Handyman. Small Might is sus. Fuck school. I suspect that this was a reference to some antique game, but I'm not a nerd, so I'm not sure. Handyman. Yes. You a spy. Can I be there for the moment when Eraserhead, All Might, Nedzu and Sir Night Eye figure out that their pet bloody vigilante group is actually All for One Second Coming and they helped it rise with their regular favors exchange. Pitching Gran Torino and Lemillion for additional degree of laugh. Small Might. Oh yeah, this is going to be a hilarious moment XD, we gotta record it to laugh about it together. Small Might. They think that Olo was a deadbeat dad and I'm dismantling his organization as a form of teenage rebellion XD. They don't know how many times my mom had to stop him from physically demolishing the school and crucifying tortured yet still breathing teachers on its ruins for allowing kids to bully me. Sneaky Gecko. Is that like a metaphor? Cat Provider. His father would do it. No doubts about it. He did worse things for much lesser reason. Small Might. Imagine All Might but morally tilted towards being as evil as he is good. Sneaky Gecko. Oh shit. Small Might. My father is evil. You don't get called symbol of evil without that. Small Might. Which is why I'm happy he retired and I'm not doing the same scary stuff as he did. Also, he adores my little sister so much that he actually starts acting like a reasonable human being due to that. My sister's cuteness is a class 6 quirk, you can't change my mind. Vampire Princess. Not going to try. She just smiled at me and I began to consider going to the nearest police precinct and turning myself in, just to make the world a better place for her. Vampire Princess. That smile. That damn smile. Sneaky Gecko. I'm increasingly worried. Small Might. Eraserhead was right about me disagreeing with Dad on moral grounds and not sharing his malevolence, but that's all he got right. Small Might. If no more questions for now, go to sleep. Small Might. We're killing Eclipse tomorrow. You have to be in your full strength. Handyman. The raid boss is going down. The operation started as it should. Then it immediately derailed into complete chaos. Eclipse had a bit above 900 soldiers and 23 tanks on standby in the base. High morale. People were really heated up by the string of victories and a single tie. The idea of attacking Musutafu was met with an ovation. She used her quirk to summon a surface and connect it to the Musutafu's main square, right next to the local governmental office. She stepped through it, noticing something was strange with it but not to a point where the warping failed. Like always, she makes herself float atop one of her surfaces. Nothing is more attention-grabbing than floating menacingly above the crowd you are about to slaughter. And then the plan dies. Screaming, she expects a bunch of civilians minding their own business and probably several local heroes. They would attack her immediately, hoping to delay the gas and give the civilians time to flee, but Kamui Woods, Mount Lady and Death Arms aren't actually that powerful. She could deal with all three at once, in a matter of seconds, and that's without counting the army that would join her in a minute. Instead, she sees the last civilians fleeing from the square, an absolute lack of heroes around, and several figures that she recognizes as members of the League of Villains scattered in front of her. Then she finds out that she can't open a gate for her soldiers to pour in. My name is Legion and we are the League of Villains. The figure in the All Might hoodie standing behind the crowd, right next to the League's warp gate, announces, "We've decided to interrupt your assault on Musutafu in order to punish you for stealing our kill and end your irritating rampage." Legion sighs and adds in a different voice, "Destroying cities is bad for business, you see." Of course the kid was pissed off by it. Chronostasis was right. Legion is a revenge freak, and she just, as he said, made it personal. She should have listened to her second in command a bit more. Oh well, she just has to kill them all and find whatever machine or a person is deactivating her warp. Then she can resume her attack on the town. "I heard that you were a late bloomer," she says confidently. She knows her skills. She battled many pro-heroes. She only took down Endeavor in his depowered state because of the delicious irony. The Flame Hero flaunted the strength of his quirk, so she slew him in front of millions in a state of de facto quirklessness. She was confident she was at least his equal, and he would massacre the League if Stain didn't catch him off guard. Shouldn't you be at least somewhat amenable to the front's goals? She uses the time to scan the area. Perhaps the heroes will arrive, turning this into a melee à trois. Legion is a good planner. She knows that well enough. Chronostasis and recent League's actions are a good proof of that. If she buys enough time for the heroes to arrive, she can take advantage of chaos. She sees nothing that could be a warp suppression machine. But she also doesn't see their engineer. Suspicious. "Oh, but I am amenable to your goals," Legion says with a cheerful voice. "Just not to your methods. Do you have the tiniest idea how many quirkless kids has their bullying intensify each time you commit a mass murder? Then again, that's probably a feature, not a bug. I mean, the more they are bullied, the more likely they are to join the front. Am I right? Did he just suggest that?" Eclipse is beyond furious. She is going to murder every single League member. Brutally. Perhaps she will take some alive and have them tortured. She spent 2 decades fighting a war against people treating quirkless as subhumans, and she isn't taking words like that face down. USH. Suddenly, she freezes. Quirk. Mental. Is it mind screws? She can see him, standing before Legion with a rifle. Eye contact. Remain stationary for the next 10 seconds. She hears his voice. Stain throws knives at her. Mindscrew pulls up his rifle. She didn't survive her childhood as a quirkless without a willpower of steel. She promptly shatters the quirk. Surfaces block the attacks. She isn't going to get caught like that again. This is cheating. She hears someone, probably Mindscrew, say, "How did you do that?" She is about to respond with a taunt, when suddenly she has a breakthrough. Is it vocal response-based brainwashing? Mindscrew and Legion were both wearing masks, and she knew that Legion's was a voice changer. Does that mean, oh, those sly kids? It was Mindscrew who taunted her earlier, placed in front of the Legion so she wouldn't recognize that fact. She isn't falling for it anymore. She will stay silent for the rest of the battle. She stands there, on a floating surface, summoning several more. Her limit is 15, but when she gets close to it, she has problems overseeing all of them at once. She flings 2 at Legion, but he dodges. Her control is so-so at a distance, too, so she fails to make the surfaces follow him. They are 2-dimensional. You can stand on them, or connect 2 surfaces, but their edges slice through all matter. They are essentially monomolecular circular saw blades. Her quirk is powerful, like it's common for the late bloomers. One of the nearest League members suddenly triples in size and lunges at her. She reacts instantly. She fought Redistro once and managed to bring it to a tie. She knows how to deal with strength enhancers. She reacts in time and stops the punch with 4 surfaces arrayed one after another. The punch shatters 3 of those. That's a dangerous level of strength. That villain has strength approaching Redistro's. There are more punches after it, as his speed is decidedly inhuman. She summons her surfaces fast enough to compensate, but it occupies most of her attention. Stain is throwing knives at her from the side. His knives are connected with him with a thread. He can recover them easily once they bounce off one of her surfaces. She can't teleport them elsewhere because her warp doesn't work. And he is reacting fast enough that she can't use her surfaces to slice the line. She would have to give up on defending for a few seconds to muster the response. And she knows that Mindscrew with his rifle is waiting for it. They have her pinned down. She doesn't like that. Decay and Vampire are the closest, but they aren't attacking. She is too high for them. They are probably going to lunge at her if the surface she is using as her footing vanishes. They will overwhelm her if she drops to the ground, forcing her to maintain that surface. She can't even move, because flying around would interrupt her concentration. Their mere presence is enough to immobilize her. It also costs her one of her surfaces. She knows that Legion is a good quirk analyst. But this is getting ridiculous. Risks sometimes have to be taken. She summons another surface and sends it on a semicircle route. She almost decapitates Zealot, but he dodges. Mindscrew, the endpoint of the semicircle, has much less luck. The surface cuts his rifle and hand in half. His arm is half split vertically. He screams. The blood gushes from the wound. One down, unless Legion gets him to the League's healer instantly. He will bleed out soon. Just don't answer taunts, and Mindscrew is useless. He is no longer shooting her, so she can amass 3 surfaces. Stain dodges the incoming blades easily, but he doesn't expect her to tilt the nearest at the last second. The wide side of her surface impacts him and throws him back. Knives were dealt with, at least for now. Spinner, Dab-Eye, Mustard, and Gremlin. Where are they? Mustard is probably useless. The Lizard is equally useless in this battle. He is practically a weak stain. Dab-Eye and Gremlin are left. Where are they? Legion wouldn't attack her with half of his squad. There is a plan in the works, and she is yet to figure it out. Stain stands up. That man is made from steel, she knows that much. His eyes are maniacal. He draws his sword. She survives the execution of Legion's plan by accident. She is looking in the right direction, and she can see a sudden burst of light in the distance, on what looks like an apartment complex a few clicks from her position. Her instincts save her life. She arrays enough surfaces for them to intercept the incoming round, despite it shattering most of them. It wasn't a sniper rifle. Whatever it was, it packed enough punch that she would expect it from a heavy artillery round. It was a small caliber, but the impact was enormous, so extremely high velocity. And that blink of light. Realization strikes. Did Gremlin just fire a RAILGUN at her? Holy fuck. Those kids are crazy. If she didn't stop the round, it would probably pierce 1 or 2 buildings behind her. Eclipse now knows the engineer's position. If her hunch is correct, the missing League members are with her. She doesn't know how long Gremlin will be reloading, but she needs to move over and kill the engineer before that happens. But before that, she manages to sever Zealot's arm with a vertical slice. The hulking monstrosity stops for a few seconds, and she almost manages to decapitate it, but it jumps back. Stain charges in her direction. He quickly catches up with Decay and Vampire. But it doesn't matter anymore. Mindscrew falls on the ground, probably about to bleed out. Finally, she is free. She can move. She will now murder them all, one by one. Mindscrew is dying. Zealot is pushed back. She can hide behind a building so no more railguns from Gremlin. She can keep Stain at bay, and all that's left are pure melee fighters that she can rain death on from above. She will. Suddenly, she feels a slight pinch in her right side. Checkmate, Legion announces. She looks down to see a small cloud of blackness floating right next to her, and a small and somewhat mismatched and distorted syringe bullet dug deep into her suit. There is another cloud of blackness right next to Legion, and he points at it with some sort of pistol that she completely overlooked during the fight, and her mind makes a connection. No, she screams while her quirk stops working. She falls down, where knives are waiting. Blueberry is 20 years old. She is also acutely aware that she will not live until her 21st birthday, as she was just dragged into Chronostasi's office together with her 3 friends that she planned to escape with. They are all beaten up. The QLF members that made the arrest didn't take their betrayal lightly. They had orders to keep them alive for interrogation, but they weren't going to be delicate. Chronostasis is there, wearing his gas mask and breathing in a loud and sometimes pained way. Shijko once compared him to some Darth Vader character from a pre-quirk film she once watched, just with a different color palette and normal clothes. "Leave us be," he says, and their captors vanish from the room. The 4 of them lie on the ground in front of Chronostasi's desk, bruised, battered, and cuffed. "You know, I have to thank you for what you did." Blueberry isn't sure if she heard that right. Eclipse was problematic to deal with, Chronostasis says, before making a particularly labored breath. "But you sold her to the League of Villains, and they just took her down, in a way that didn't damage the other assets of the front. That now belongs to me." League of Villains. Her childhood friend knew the League of Villains. Why didn't he? "I plan to make an example out of you." Chronostasis continues. He is visibly tired and hunched over, half resting on the desk behind him. "I allowed your ridiculous rebellion to continue long enough to take Eclipse out of the picture. but I changed my mind. Izuku is. He coughs furiously for a few seconds. Izuku is doing well. Too well. And revenge. I love revenge. I'm going to kill him, but why not make him know of that beforehand? Psychological damage. Yes, that's gonna be great. He laughs slightly. There is a sick tint to his laughter. So I'm letting you go. Chronostasis adds, while pulling off his gas mask. Blueberry can see some smoke coming from it. Wait, was that an inhalator rather than a gas mask? With a message to Izuku. He leans over terrified Blueberry. His body starts changing. Hives erupt on the exposed parts of his skin. She can see his eyes changing color. Something bulges under his skin. His hair begins to turn black. His face twists and changes. He touches her hand. Something in her shifts. The bruises no longer hurt. Her broken arm fixes itself. That's not his quirk. Just tell him. Blood bursts from Chronostasis's mouth. He quietly puts his gas mask back on. And the grotesque changes she just saw began to slowly revert. Tell him that even death cannot stop Overhaul.